ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into Part 1 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. The woods behind the house were quiet and familiar. The clearing sat between the trees like it always did, packed dirt, uneven ground, and marks left behind from years of use. This wasn't a place meant to look nice. It was a place meant to work. Stacks of metal plates rested near a tree, some clean, some rusted, all heavy. A thick barbell lay across two flat stones, already loaded with more weight than most people would ever touch. Ikoma stood over it, relaxed. He rolled his shoulders once, then bent down and wrapped his chalk hands around the bar. His grip was firm but easy, like he wasn't thinking about it all. Izuku casual, all right. He lifted. The bar came up fast, blurring as it moved. The plates rattled, then steadied as he lowered it and brought it back up again. And again. His arms left faint afterimages in the air, the motion too quick and too consistent to track cleanly. Izuku kept going. His breathing stayed even. His feet didn't shift. His back stayed straight. Every rep looked the same as the last, clean, controlled, and effortless. Izuku quiet, 1, 2, 3. He wasn't counting carefully. The numbers just slipped out as his body kept moving. 10 passed, then 20, then 50. The dirt under his shoes compressed with every lift. Small stones bounced away from the vibration. Leaves shook loose from branches overhead. Izuku didn't slow. Izuku thinking aloud. "I lost count." He shrugged slightly and kept lifting. The bar flickered through the air now, afterimages stacking close together as his pace increased. The plates hummed faintly from the speed, metal vibrating against metal. Izuku's mind wandered the way it always did once his body settled into rhythm. Izuku casual. Bakery should still be open. Lift. Lower. Lift. Izuku mildly hopeful. Cream puffs weren't sold out yesterday. The thought made him smile just a bit. He sped up without meaning to, arms moving so fast the bar almost looked like it was standing still. Izuku half distracted. Maybe I'll get 2. He passed 100 without noticing. Then 200. His breathing stayed steady, barely louder than the rustling leaves. Finally, he slowed and brought the bar down, holding it at his waist. Izuku breathing out. Okay, that's enough. He lowered the bar and let it drop. The weights hit the dirt with a deep, heavy thud that rolled through the clearing. Izuku straightened up, rolled his shoulders, and stretched his arms overhead like he'd just finished a light warm-up. Izuku's satisfied, yeah, that's fine. He looked toward the path leading back to the house. Izuku deciding, cream puff time. Transition. The town was calm in the late afternoon. Shops were still open. A few people walked along the sidewalks, bags in hand. Someone swept in front of their store. Someone else stood outside a vending machine, staring at the options like it was a hard decision. Then the wind hit. Dust lifted off the road in a quick rush. Loose papers flipped over. A shop banner snapped loudly against its pole. Ikoma jogged through town. To him, it felt easy, relaxed, a light pace. His feet barely touched the ground as he moved down the street, body leaning forward just enough to keep momentum. To everyone else, he was a green and white blur cutting through the air, leaving nothing behind but moving wind and a low rushing sound. A woman holding grocery bags didn't even look up. Shop owner calling out, "Careful, Izuku." Izuku's voice floated back, already distant. Izuku cheerful, "I am." He passed the crosswalk in an instant. The light was red. No cars were moving anyway. A kid standing next to his mother squinted as Izuku went by. "Kid wide-eye, Mom, was that him?" "Mother calm, yeah. Komari's boy." The kid stared at the empty street, hair still fluttering from the wind. Kid amazed. "He's really quirkless?" Mother shrugging. "That's what the doctors say." Izuku slowed just enough to make a turn, shoes scraping lightly against the pavement as he cut down a side street. The wind died down behind him. A cat sitting on a fence watched him pass, ears flattening. Old man outside a shop grumbling. There he goes again. Old woman amused. At least he's not breaking anything. Izuku passed them with a quick wave. Izuku friendly. Afternoon. The bakery came into view ahead. He slowed rapidly, stopping just outside the door without so much as a skid mark. The wind settled. The street went back to normal like nothing had happened. He pushed the door open. Bell ringing ding. Bakery clerk looking up. You're back already? Izuku leaned slightly on the counter, breathing steady. Izuku casual. Yeah. Long day. Bakery clerk smiling. Cream puff? Izuku's eyes immediately went to the display case. Izuku hopeful. You still have them? Bakery clerk proud. Fresh batch. Izuku relaxed. Izuku relieved. Perfect. Izuku stood at the counter while the clerk carefully placed cream puffs into a small box. The glass display reflected his face as he waited, hands resting on the edge, relaxed. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Izuku not surprised. Huh. He pulled it out and smiled when he saw the name on the screen. Izuku answering, Hey, Mom. The sound on the other end was loud immediately. Kids talking over each other, chairs scraping, someone laughing too hard. Izuku held the phone a little farther from his ear, still smiling. Komari tired but warm. Izuku, I just wanted to let you know I'll be home a bit late. A child shouted something unintelligible in the background, followed by another kid yelling back. Izuku amused. Sounds like things are going great over there. Komari sighing. They're energetic today. Very energetic. Izuku could picture it easily. The classroom. The two small desks. Kids with quirks that were way too strong for their age, barely contained, and constantly going off at the wrong times. He liked them anyway. Izuku fawned. Did Tamashiro eat something he wasn't supposed to again? There was a pause. Then a long one. Komari carefully. He may have tested his binging ball on 3 lunches. Izuku closed his eyes, already laughing. Izuku laughing. That kid's unstoppable. In the background, a boy's voice cut through the noise. Tamashiro shouting, Ikoma, S.A.N. I'm sorry. Izuku couldn't help it. Izuku calling out, You better be. More laughter followed, along with Komari trying and failing to sound strict. Komari exasperated. See? This is what I deal with. Izuku's soft. They're good kids. Just loud. Komari gentler. They are. That's why I stay. The clerk slid the box of cream puffs across the counter. Izuku nodded in thanks and picked it up. Izuku casual. So you'll be late? Komari. Apologetic. Yes. Could you make dinner tonight? Izuku didn't even hesitate. Izuku easy, yeah. I got it. Komari relieved. Thank you. And don't forget vegetables this time. Izuku grinning. No promises. A kid yelled something about glowing desks. Another laughed. Komari laughing despite herself. I'll see you later, okay? Izuku warm. Yeah. Take your time. He hung up and tucked the phone away, still smiling to himself. He looked down at the box in his hands. Izuku thinking aloud. All right, dinner and dessert. He turned toward the door, cream puffs secured under his arm. Transition. The supermarket was busy in the normal after-school way. Carts rattled over tile. Someone argued quietly over which brand of rice to buy. The air smelled like produce, plastic packaging, and the faint sweetness of the bakery section. Izuku walked in with the cream puff box tucked under one arm and a basket in his hand. A few people glanced over as the doors slid shut behind him. No one jumped anymore. No one stared. He wasn't a blur now, just another guy in workout clothes picking up groceries. Cashier from an earlier shift calling. Hey, Izuku. Izuku friendly. Hey. He headed straight for the rice aisle. Grabbed a big bag without much thought. Then curry blocks. Carrots. Potatoes. Onions. He paused at the meat section for a second, thinking. Izuku muttering. Chicken. Yeah. He added it to the basket. Then grabbed tea leaves from a shelf near the end of the aisle. The kind Komari liked. Mild. Nothing fancy. At the checkout, the clerk scanned his items quickly. Clerk casual. Cooking again tonight? Izuku nodding, yeah. Mom's working late. Clerk smiling. Good kid. Izuku paid, bowed his head slightly, and left. The house was quiet when he got back. Shoes lined up neatly by the door. The familiar smell of wood and clean laundry hung in the air. Izuku set the groceries on the counter and washed his hands, movements automatic. He tied on an apron. Izuku focused. All right. Rice went into the cooker first. He rinsed it carefully, measured the water, and set it to cook. Then he moved on to the vegetables. Knife tapping softly against the cutting board. Onions sliced clean and even. Potatoes peeled and cubed. Carrots chopped in neat rounds. The chicken followed, cut into bite-sized pieces. He heated the pan, oil sizzling lightly as he added the meat. The sound filled the kitchen, steady and comforting. Izuku stirred slowly, not rushing. Izuku thinking aloud. She's probably exhausted. He added the vegetables, then water, then let it simmer. Steam rose and fogged the window slightly. The smell of curry spread through the house, warm and familiar. While it cooked, he set the table. 2 bowls, chopsticks, cups for tea, everything placed where it always went. He checked the pot again, stirred once more, then lowered the heat. Izuku satisfied. Almost there. The rice cooker clicked softly when it finished. Izuku fluffed the rice, then moved back to the stove, adding the curry blocks and stirring until the sauce thickened. Finally, he poured hot water over the tea leaves and let them steep. The front door opened. Izuku looked up. Izuku brightening. Welcome home. Komari stepped inside slowly, shoulders slumped, hair slightly messy, eyes tired but soft when she saw him. Komari relieved. It smells amazing. Izuku warm. Dinner's ready. She slipped off her shoes and moved toward the table, letting out a long breath as she sat. Komari grateful. Thank you, Izuku. Izuku set a bowl of curry and rice in front of her, then placed the tea beside it. Izuku easy, eat first. You can complain about the kids after. The two of them sat across from each other at the small kitchen table. Steam rose from the bowls of curry, fogging the air between them. Komari took a careful bite first, shoulders relaxing almost immediately. Komari tired sigh. Oh, that's good, I really needed this. Izuku watched her for a moment, then started eating too. Izuku casual. Long day? Komari let out a short laugh. Komari rubbing her temple. You have no idea. One kid set off their quirk during reading time, another got stuck to the ceiling, and Tamashiro. Izuku already knew where this was going. Izuku smiling. Binging ball? Komari pointed her chopsticks at him. Komari half scolding. He found the snack cabinet. Again, I swear that quirk is going to bankrupt the school. Izuku chuckled. Izuku amused. At least he apologized this time? Komari reluctantly fawned. He did. Very seriously. While still chewing. Izuku shook his head, still smiling. He liked hearing about the kids. They were loud, messy, and way too powerful for their age. But they reminded him of something simple. They were just kids trying to figure themselves out. Komari more relaxed. They asked about you, you know. Izuku looked up. Izuku curious. Yeah? Komari soft. They always do. Especially when Valentina comes up. Izuku paused for half a second, then nodded. Izuku casual. She's in Colombia right now. Visiting her family. Komari smiled gently. Komari teasing. You'll have to meet them someday. Izuku slightly flustered. Yes, someday. They ate quietly for a moment. The house felt calm. Comfortable. Then Komari set her chopsticks down. Komari careful. So you're training. Izuku didn't tense, but he knew what was coming. Izuku neutral. Yeah. Komari looked at him, really looked at him. Komari quiet. The UA entrance exam is next week. Izuku nodded. Izuku simple. I know. Komari hesitated, then sighed. Komari guilty. I'm still sorry. For before. Izuku blinked. Izuku confused. For what? Komari shook her head. Komari honest. For doubting you. For trying to push you toward a normal career. For hoping you'd give this up. Izuku set his chopsticks down slowly. Izuku gentle. Mom. Komari clasped her hands together. Komari emotional. I was scared. I still am. You're quirkless in a world that doesn't forgive that easily. I thought if I could just keep you safe. Izuku leaned back slightly, calm as ever. Izuku soft? I know. She looked at him, eyes glossy. Komari quiet, but you never wavered. Not once. Izuku shrugged lightly. Izuku matter of fact. This is what I want to do. Komari nodded, swallowing. Komari resolved. Then I'll support you. Fully. No more what-ifs. No more trying to steer you away. Izuku smiled. Not big. Just real. Izuku warm. That's enough. Komari reached across the table and rested her hand over his. Komari proud. You're going to do great. Izuku looked down at their hands, then back up at her. Izuku calm. I know. They went back to eating, the quiet between them comfortable, the weight of the coming exam sitting. There without fear. Transition. The teacher's lounge at UA was quiet in the exhausted, end-of-day way. Lights hummed softly overhead. Half-empty coffee cups were scattered across the tables. Someone had left a stack of papers leaning against a couch that had clearly seen better decades. Shota Aizawa sat slouched in a chair, scarf draped loosely around his shoulders, eyes half-lidded and red from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had lost a fight with a vending machine and barely survived. A laptop rested on his knees, screen filled with files. Applicant after applicant. Quirks scrolled past in neat categories. Fire, ice, mutation, transformation, energy, projection. Names blurred together. Power ratings, notes, recommendations. Aizawa clicked through them without much expression. Aizawa flat, another explosion type great. He yawned, rubbed his eyes, and kept scrolling. Then he stopped. His finger hovered over the trackpad. Aizawa pausing, huh? He leaned forward slightly, squinting at the screen like it might be lying to him. Name, Izuku Midoriya. Quirk, none. Status, confirmed quirkless. Aizawa blinked once. Then again. Aizawa slow. Quirkless? He straightened a little, tired posture, shifting just enough to show interest. He opened the file fully, eyes scanning the details more carefully now. Medical confirmation. Multiple evaluations. No quirk factor detected. Aizawa let out a quiet breath through his nose. Aizawa mild disbelief. You're kidding. He leaned back, one hand rubbing his chin. The corner of his mouth twitched upward. It had been years, ever since they'd quietly removed that old, unspoken rule. No one without a quirk ever bothered applying anymore. Most didn't even try. And now this. Aizawa scrolled further. Physical assessments. Training history. Notes that didn't make sense at first glance. Numbers that made him pause. Aizawa interested. These stats. He stared at the screen a moment longer. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Just a little. Tired, sharp, genuine. Aizawa dry amusement. Well, I'll be damned. He clicked the approval box without hesitation. Aizawa decisive. Approved. He closed the file and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Aizawa, a low chuckle. Nisa's going to love this. For the first time that night, his exhaustion felt lighter. Something new. Something weird. Something that shouldn't work, but might. Aizawa quiet. Amused. Izuku Midoriya, huh? He glanced back at the laptop. Aizawa, anticipating. Can't wait to see you in the exam. A week passed faster than Izuku expected. Before he really had time to sit with it, he was standing inside UA National Institute for Public Safety and Heroics, surrounded by hundreds of other applicants. The place was massive up-close glass, steel, clean lines, and wide-open walkways that made even big crowds feel small. Izuku adjusted the strap of his bag and looked around. Most people were dressed like they were ready for battle. Custom gear, support items, confident stances. Some whispered to friends. Others stretched, showing off their quirks without actually using them. Izuku just smiled. He was wearing his new training clothes, simple, fitted, comfortable. Izuku under his breath. This really feels like a festival. Someone nearby snorted. Random applicant scoffing. You excited or something? Izuku glanced over, still smiling. Izuku honest. Yeah, kinda. The guy blinked, clearly not expecting that answer, then turned away. Izuku didn't mind. His chest felt light. His legs felt ready. This was the place he'd been working toward for years. They were guided into a huge room filled with long tables and chairs laid out in neat rows. The noise softened as everyone took their seats. Papers were passed out. Pens clicked. Then the lights dimmed slightly. A man stepped forward. Messy hair. Tired eyes. A capture weapon wrapped loosely around his neck like a scarf. He looked like he hadn't slept in days and didn't care who knew it. Shota Aizawa, also known as Erased Head. Aizawa scanned the room slowly, eyes sharp despite his posture. The room went quiet on its own. Aizawa flat, all right. This is the written portion of the entrance exam. He gestured lazily toward the papers. Aizawa continuing. Hero law, ethics, situational judgment, common sense. A few applicants stiffened at that. Aizawa dry. If you don't have that last one, you're already in trouble. A couple of nervous laughs broke out. Aizawa didn't react. Aizawa calm. You have 1 hour. Answer everything. When time's up, turn it in. No talking. No quirk use. His eyes swept the room again, briefly pausing on Izuku. Just for a fraction of a second. Aizawa's mouth twitched. Aizawa finishing, begin. The timer started. Pens moved almost immediately. Pages flipped. Izuku picked up his pen and read the first question carefully. Hero response priority in a multi-threat scenario. Izuku quiet. Okay, yeah. He wrote steadily. This wasn't hard. Years of watching hero footage, studying cases, and thinking through situations kicked in naturally. He moved from question to question without panic. Around him, some applicants scribbled frantically. Others stared at the paper, frozen. Halfway through, he stretched his fingers once and kept going. Time passed. Aizawa walked slowly between rows, hands in his pockets, eyes flicking over shoulders. He stopped behind Izuku for a moment, glancing down at the paper. Clear answers. Calm handwriting. No hesitation marks. Aizawa quiet, amused, huh? He moved on. When the timer buzzed, Izuku set his pen down immediately. Aizawa calling out, time. Pens down. Papers were collected. Chairs scraped lightly as people shifted. Izuku leaned back, hands resting on his knees, still smiling. Izuku soft. That was fun. Somewhere nearby, someone stared at him like he was insane. Transition. The auditorium was loud the moment everyone stepped inside. Hundreds of voices echoed off the high ceiling. Seats filled quickly, metal frames creaking as people sat down. The stage lights flicked on, bright and a little blinding. Izuku took a seat near the middle and leaned back, looking around. The place felt huge, bigger than the videos, bigger than he imagined. Izuku quiet, impressed, wow. The lights suddenly flared brighter. A man shot up onto the stage like he'd been launched from a cannon. Present Mike grinning, loud. Wivo future heroes. The room jumped. Present Mike planted his hands on the podium, teeth flashing under the lights. His energy filled the entire space like static. Present Mike booming. Welcome to the physical portion of the UA entrance exam. Some applicants cheered. Others groaned. A few looked like they were already regretting their life choices. Izuku leaned forward, interested. Present Mike gesturing wildly. You'll be heading to our mock city battlefield. Your goal is simple defeat, AS mini-villain bots, AS you can. A screen behind him lit up, showing different robot models. Present Mike explaining. Each bot has a point value based on difficulty. Rack up points, rack up glory, and show us what you've got. Murmurs spread through the room. Confidence, excitement, a little fear. Present Mike lowering his voice dramatically. Now, there is one special bot you need to. A chair scraped loudly. A tall boy with neatly combed blue hair stood up straight, glasses flashing as he raised his hand. Blue-haired boy sharp, excuse me. The entire room turned to look at him. Present Mike blinked. Present Mike confused. Yeah, my man? The boy pushed his glasses up, posture stiff like he was giving a presentation. Blue-haired boy serious. You neglected to mention any information regarding evacuation procedures or rescue points. Also, interrupting your explanation midway could cause confusion among examinees. There was a brief silence. Izuku stared for a second. Then he chuckled. Izuku muttering, oh no. A single bead of sweat slid down behind his head, cartoonishly dramatic. Present Mike stared at the boy, then burst out laughing. Present Mike amused. Ha. Wow. Somebody's got hero etiquette running at full volume. A few people snickered. Others looked annoyed. The blue-haired boy remained completely serious. Present Mike waving a hand. Relax, glasses. I was just about to get there. He turned back to the podium. Present Mike grinning. Now about that special bot. The screen behind him changed. A massive silhouette filled it. Present Mike dropping his voice, the 0-pointer. The room went quiet. Izuku's eyes locked onto the screen, excitement buzzing under his skin. Izuku soft, curious, so that's the big one. Present Mike cheerful but firm. It's huge, it's tough, and it's worth 0 points. Which means, he pointed at the screen dramatically. Present Mike loud, avoid it. Some applicants laughed nervously. Others swallowed hard. Izuku leaned forward, hands on his knees, smiling. Izuku under his breath. This is going to be fun. Transition. The shuttle bus ride was short and quiet, just long enough for nerves to settle into something sharper. When the doors opened at Gate B, a wave of heat and open air rolled in. Izuku stepped off with the others and stopped in place. Behind a massive metal gate was a full fake city. Tall buildings, streets, alleys. Rubble was already scattered like something had gone wrong on purpose. It didn't look like a set. It looked real enough to forget it wasn't. Izuku's eyes lit up. Izuku grinning. Oh wow. People spread out, some pacing, some hyping themselves up, others stretching aggressively. Izuku moved a few steps away from the crowd and started loosening up. He rolled his shoulders, stretched his legs, and shook out his arms. Izuku, quiet, focused. Okay, hamstring drive, triceps drive, shoulder drive. He bounced lightly on his feet, testing his balance. Izuku muttering. Hurricane rush, Iron Mantle impact, don't forget weakness mode. He leaned down to stretch his calves when a shadow fell across him. Blonde guy curious. Hey. Izuku looked up. Standing, there was a tall blonde guy wearing a clean martial arts dojo uniform. A long tail swayed slowly behind him, the tip ending in a thick tuft of blonde fur. He looked relaxed, confident, and genuinely friendly. Izuku straightened up. Izuku polite. Oh hey. The guy tilted his head slightly. Blonde guy interested. I heard you listing stuff just now. Techniques? Izuku blinked, then nodded. Izuku casual. Yeah. Kinda helps me focus. The guy smiled. Blonde guy grinning. Same. I'm Masahiro Ojiro. He gestured vaguely at his uniform. Ojiro matter of fact. Martial artist. Izuku's eyes flicked to the tail, then back to Ojiro's face. Izuku honest. That's awesome. Ojiro chuckled. Ojiro scratching the back of his head. Thanks. So are you a martial artist too? Izuku thought about it for half a second. Izuku considering. Sort of. I train a lot. Mostly hand-to-hand. Strength-based stuff. Ojiro's eyes lit up. Ojiro excited. No way. That's rare here. Izuku smiled. Izuku easy, yeah. I don't have a quirk, so I kinda had to go all in on it. There was a brief pause. Ojiro didn't react the way most people did. No awkward silence. No pity. Ojiro simply, huh? That's impressive. Izuku relaxed without realizing it. Izuku grateful, thanks. Ojiro stretched his arms and rolled his neck. Ojiro friendly. Guess we'll both be fighting up close then. Izuku glanced at the gate as it began to hum faintly. Mechanisms waking up. Izuku excited. Looks like it. A voice echoed over the loudspeakers. Present mixed Tawas any loud and electric. Present mic announcing. All right, heroes in training. Get ready. The ground vibrated slightly as the gate locks disengaged. Izuku bounced once on his toes, eyes fixed forward. Izuku quiet, thrilled. Let's do this. The massive iron gates groaned as they began to slide apart. Metal scraped against metal, the opening just wide enough to see streets, buildings, and the first silhouettes of villain robots waiting inside. Izuku didn't wait. The moment the gap appeared, he pushed off the ground. Izuku excited. Boom! The pavement beneath his feet cracked outward as he launched forward, the shockwave snapping dust and loose gravel into the air. In the next instant, he was gone, just a green blur and a violent rush of wind blasting through the gate. A couple of applicants nearby flinched. Ojiro stunned. Izuku shot straight into the city. Buildings rushed past him in streaks. The sound of alarms and mechanical movement barely registered before the first robot came into view. A two-pointer turned its head just in time to see him. Izuku focused, ballista knuckle. His fist connected. The robot folded inward with a metallic crunch, its torso caving as it was launched sideways into a wall. It didn't get back up. Izuku landed, barely slowing, already moving again. His feet barely touched the street as he pivoted. Izuku's sharp missile throw. He grabbed a chunk of broken concrete and hurled it down the road. It punched straight through the head of another robot, sparks exploding as it collapsed mid-step. Izuku kept running. He cut down an alley, arms blurring as smaller robots rushed him. One swing, two, three. Metal shattered. Limbs flew. The air filled with sparks and debris. Izuku, breathing steady. Okay, this layout's good. A heavier robot dropped from above, slamming into the street in front of him. Izuku planted his feet. Izuku calm, guillotine drop. He leapt, arm raised, then came down hard. His fist smashed straight through the robot's head, driving it into the pavement with a deafening crash. The street cracked. Izuku straightened up, already scanning for the next target. Sirens wailed somewhere nearby. More robots poured in from side streets. Izuku's grin widened. Izuku genuinely happy. This is great. He took off again, leaving broken machines behind him as the city echoed with impact after impact, proof that the exam had truly begun. Transition. The observation room was dim, lit mostly by the glow of dozens of monitors mounted along the walls. Each screen showed a different section of the mock city. Robots exploding, applicants running, shouting, using their quirks in all kinds of ways. It looked like a solid year overall. A few teachers stood with clipboards. Others leaned back in chairs, arms crossed, watching quietly. Midnight interested. Not bad this year. Some strong offensive types. Cementos nodding. Good mobility too. Less freezing up than last time. At the back of the room, Aizawa sat slouched in a chair, scarf pulled around his shoulders, one hand wrapped around a cup of coffee. His eyes drifted lazily across the screens. Then he stopped. Aizawa leaning forward there. He focused on one monitor. On screen, Izuku tore through a street like a living projectile. A robot barely finished turning before it collapsed. Another was already breaking apart mid-step. After images followed every movement. Sparks and debris filled the air. Present Mike whistling, wow, that kid's fast. Midnight amused. Looks like a strength enhancement quirk. Maybe speed too? Aizawa didn't answer right away. He took a sip of his coffee, eyes never leaving the screen. On screen, Izuku grabbed a robot by the arm and slammed it into the ground hard enough to crack the pavement, then launched forward again without slowing. Aizawa flat. No quirk. The room went quiet. Cementos turning. What? Midnight blinked. Midnight confused. Come again? Aizawa pointed at the screen with his cup. Aizawa calm. He's quirkless. A few heads snapped back toward the monitor. The footage replayed in their minds speed, strength, control. None of it added up. Present Mike louder. You're telling me all of that is just what training? Aizawa dry. Yep. There was a pause. Someone adjusted their glasses. Another teacher leaned closer to the screen. Midnight slowly. That's not supposed to be possible. Aizawa shrugged slightly. Aizawa unbothered. And yet, on screen, Izuku used a broken robot as a stepping stone, launching himself up and smashing another machine out of the air with a single punch. Aizawa's mouth curved just a little. Aizawa quiet, satisfied. Told you this year would be interesting. Nizu's chair creaked softly as he leaned forward, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Nizu pleasant. Oh my, how very unexpected. The monitors kept playing, sparks flying as Izuku tore through the city, while the room stayed silent, everyone trying to reconcile what they were seeing with what they'd just been told. In the observation room, a tall, thin man sat quietly beside Nizu, hands folded in his lap. Toshinori Yagi looked nothing like the symbol of peace the world knew. His frame was narrow, his shoulders slightly hunched, his face drawn, but his eyes were bright. He watched the monitor closely. On screen, Izuku vaulted over rubble, grabbed a robot mid-charge, and redirected it away from a fallen examinee before crushing it with a clean strike. Toshinori impressed. He's very good. Nizu's ears twitched as he smiled. Nizu pleasant. You sound surprised. Tashinori adjusted his posture, eyes never leaving the screen. Tashinori honest. I am. I'm still skeptical that he's truly quirkless, but his movement, his judgment. Another screen showed Izuku stopping beside a girl pinned under debris. He lifted the concrete slab effortlessly, pulled her free, and pointed her toward a safer route before taking off again. Tashinori's smile widened. Tashinori warm. He's helping people. Aizawa glanced over from his seat, coffee still in hand. Aizawa flat. Rescue points weren't explained. Tashinori blinked. Tashinori realizing, Nizu chuckled softly. Nizu amused. Quite so. We wanted to see who would act without being told. Who would help even when there's nothing to gain. He tapped a claw lightly against the console. Nizu thoughtful. It appears young MidoriIkaru has that spirit. Aizawa's eyes stayed on the screen. Aizawa calm. Told you. Nizu's smile sharpened just a little. Nizu cheerful. Then it's time to test something else. He pressed the red button. Transition. Back in the mock city, Izuku skidded to a stop on a crack street, chest rising steadily. Broken robots littered the area around him, smoke drifting lazily upward. His arms felt warm, loose, ready. Izuku muttering, I've got to be in the hundreds by now. He glanced around, scanning for movement. That's when the ground trembled. Izuku froze. The vibration rolled through the pavement, deep and heavy, rattling loose debris. Windows shook. A low mechanical rumble echoed between buildings. Izuku slowly turned toward the sound. Down the street, something massive pushed through the city blocks. Steel plates, towering legs, a body that scraped the tops of buildings as it moved. The zero-pointer. Izuku stared up at it, eyes wide not with fear but with awe. Izuku quiet, excited woe. The giant robot let out a booming mechanical sound as it rolled forward, crushing cars and streetlights under its weight. Around him, other examinees panicked. Some ran. Some froze. Others shouted warnings. Izuku planted his feet. Izuku focused. Okay, big one. The ground shook again as the zero-pointer advanced, its shadow swallowing the street. Izuku clenched his fists. Izuku determined. Let's see what you've got. The ground shook again, harder this time. Izuku shifted his stance, eyes tracking the massive robot as it rolled closer, metal joints grinding with every step. Then he heard it. Girl panicked. Help. Izuku's head snapped to the side. A few meters down the street, a girl with chestnut hair was pinned under a chunk of broken concrete and twisted metal. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes wide, arms shaking as she tried to push herself free. The shadow of the zero-pointer crept closer, stretching over the street toward her. Izuku didn't think. Izuku immediate. I got you. He took off. The pavement cracked under his feet as he crossed the distance in a blink. He skidded to a stop. Beside her, crouching instantly. Izuku calm, steady, hey. You're okay. Don't move, all right? Girl breathing fast. I can't get my legs out. Izuku placed both hands on the slab, pinning her down. It was thick, heavy, layered with rebar. Izuku focused. Okay. Lifting. He pulled. The concrete came up cleanly, like it weighed nothing. He tossed it aside, where it shattered against the street. The girl stared, stunned. Girl disbelieving. How? Izuku was already moving, sliding an arm behind her back and another under her knees. Izuku reassuring. Questions later. The robot's foot slammed down nearby, sending a shockwave through the street. Izuku pushed off hard. Wind tore past them as he launched away, carrying her easily as he sprinted down an open side street. Debris rattled behind them. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. He didn't slow until they were well clear of the robot's path. Izuku gently set her down behind a collapsed building, making sure she was steady before letting go. Izuku checking. Can you stand? The girl nodded shakily, feet touching the ground. Girl breathless. Yeah, I think so. Izuku straightened and pointed down the street. Izuku firm but kind, go that way. Stay low. You'll be safe. She looked up at him, eyes wide, face red for a completely different reason now. Girl earnest. Thank you. Izuku smiled, quick and warm. Izuku's simple. No problem. The ground trembled again. Izuku turned back toward the sound, fists tightening as the shadow of the zero-pointer loomed over the city blocks. Izuku focused. All right, now you're my way. Izuku didn't hesitate. The moment his feet left the ground, he was gone. The air cracked as he launched straight upward, speed tearing a hollow through the space he'd been standing in. To anyone watching, he vanished and then reappeared in front of the zero-pointer's head in the same instant. Izuku drew his arm back. The air around his fist compressed hard enough to ripple. Dust and loose debris were yanked upward, dragged along by the pressure building around his forearm. Izuku focused, ballista knuckle. He punched. The impact sounded like a thunderclap. The robot's head dented inward as the shockwave blasted across its frame. Metal screamed. The massive body actually slid backward, carving deep gouges into the street as it lost balance. For a split second, the zero-pointer stayed upright. Then it tipped. Izuku's eyes widened. Izuku immediate. Nope. He kicked off the air hard, changing direction mid-flight. The force snapped like a whip as he shot behind the falling robot, wind screaming past him. He slammed into its back, feet digging into metal plating. Izuku straining, too close to the city. He braced his legs, muscles locking in perfect sequence. The robot continued to fall, weight pulling everything downward. Izuku shoved. Hard. The air detonated around him as he pushed with everything he had, redirecting the robot's momentum away from the buildings and deeper into an open intersection. The zero-pointer crashed down on its side instead of forward. The impact shook the entire zone. Concrete shattered. Windows blew out. Dust erupted into the sky in a massive cloud. Izuku rode the recoil, flipping backward and landing in a crouch several streets away. He slid to a stop, one hand braced on the ground, breathing steady but heavier now. Izuku breathing out. Okay, that was big. Behind him, the massive robot lay still, its systems sparking weakly as emergency shutdown protocols kicked in. Alarms blared. Izuku stood up slowly, rolled his shoulders once, and glanced back toward the direction he'd sent the girl running. The exam grounds slowly emptied as students were guided out in loose groups. Some people were loud, replaying their best moments out loud. Others were quiet, staring at their hands like they were still shaking off adrenaline. Izuku walked with the flow, hands in his pockets, mind already drifting somewhere else. Izuku thinking, gym first, yeah, like still feel good. He pictured a few drills he wanted to clean up. Timing on Hurricane Rush. Better control when kicking off the air. Maybe dial back the force next time so he didn't crack pavement again. Izuku muttering, Komari's going to complain if I ruin another pair of shoes. Hey! Izuku slowed and turned. Ojiro jogged up beside him, tail swaying lightly behind him. He looked a little tired, but more energized than anything else. Ojiro friendly. You heading to the station? Izuku blinked. Izuku honest. Kinda? Ojiro nodded, falling in a step beside him. Ojiro casual. Mind if I walk with you? Izuku smiled. Izuku easy. Sure. They walked past the gates, the massive UA buildings behind them now. The road stretched ahead, clean and quiet compared to the chaos earlier. Ojiro glanced at Izuku out of the corner of his eye, clearly holding something back. Ojiro careful, so I gotta ask. Izuku already knew. Izuku amused. Yeah? Ojiro scratched the back of his head with one hand, tail flicking once. Ojiro straightforward. Are you actually quirkless? Izuku didn't stop walking. Izuku's simple. Yep. Ojiro slowed half a step. Ojiro blinking. Seriously? Izuku nodded. Izuku matter of fact. Doctors checked. More than once. Ojiro frowned slightly, replaying images in his head, the speed, the strength, the way the zero-pointer had moved. Ojiro disbelieving. But you did all that. You took down robots like they were nothing. And the zero-pointer. Izuku shrugged. Izuku calm. That one was heavy, yeah? Ojiro stopped walking. Ojiro staring. That's not what I meant. Izuku stopped too and looked back at him. Izuku curious. Then what did you mean? Ojiro hesitated, then laughed softly. Ojiro honestly impressed. I mean, I trained my whole life. Martial arts. Discipline. Control. And what you did looked like something way past a quirk. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, a little embarrassed. Izuku awkward. I just train a lot. Ojiro looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. Ojiro respectful. That's kind of insane. Izuku chuckled. Izuku light. Yeah, I hear that a lot. They started walking again. Ojiro glanced ahead, toward the road, stretching toward the station. Ojiro curious. So you really walking all the way? Izuku looked down the road, then bounced lightly on his toes. Izuku casual. I was gonna jog. Ojiro blinked. Ojiro slow. That's like a mile. Izuku smiled. Izuku cheerful. Yeah. Ojiro stared at him for a second, then laughed. Ojiro amused. You know what? I believe you. Izuku leaned forward slightly, already shifting his weight. Izuku friendly. You coming? Ojiro watched him, tail flicking once, eyes bright. Ojiro grinning. Yeah. Let's walk. I want to hear how someone trains enough to punch a building-sized robot. Transition. Some time passed after the exam. It wasn't all at once. It happened naturally. Messages turned into meetups. Meetups turned into training. Training turned into long talks afterward, sitting on gym mats or the curb outside a convenience store with drinks in their hands. Izuku and Ojiro kept meeting up. They trained in quiet parks, empty gyms, anywhere they wouldn't get in trouble for cracking pavement. Ojiro practiced his forms, clean and precise. Izuku worked on muscle power control, dialing force up and down, while Ojiro watched closely, offering feedback when he could. Between sets, they talked. About school. About heroes they liked. About how weird the exam was. About how strange it felt waiting for results. Komari noticed, of course. Komari warm. It's good for you, having a friend like that. Izuku didn't argue. Izuku easy, yeah. He's solid. One afternoon, after training had gone long and both of them were sitting on the floor, Ojiro stared at his tail as it swayed behind him. He looked thoughtful, a little distant. Ojiro quiet. Sometimes I wonder if I even belong there. Izuku glanced over. Izuku concerned. What do you mean? Ojiro shrugged. Ojiro honest. My quirk's just a tail. That's it. No energy blasts. No big tricks. Just this. The tail flicked once like it felt called out. Izuku listened. He didn't interrupt. Ojiro continued, voice steady but unsure. Ojiro self-critical. Everyone else has something flashy. Something obvious. Mine feels small. Izuku leaned back on his hands, thinking for a moment. Izuku calm. Can I be honest? Ojiro looked at him. Ojiro nodding, yeah. Izuku gestured toward the tail. Izuku's simple. That thing's strong, balanced, fast, and always there. You never run out of it. It doesn't overheat. It doesn't misfire. Ojiro blinked. Izuku went on. Izuku matter of fact. A good quirk isn't a loud one. It's a practical one. Ojiro stared at him. Izuku firm. And yours is practical. There was a long pause. Ojiro looked down at his hands, then back at his tail. Slowly, a small smile appeared. Ojiro quiet. You really think so? Izuku smiled back. Izuku's certain, yeah. I wouldn't train with you if I didn't. Ojiro let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Ojiro grateful. Thanks, man. They sat there for a while longer, not rushing to get up, the easy kind of silence that only shows up once a friendship's already settled in. Transition. Izuku barely had time to take his shoes off before Komari grabbed his arm. Komari excited, waving something. Izuku look. He blinked, then looked down at the envelope in her hands. Thick paper. Official seal. He already knew where it was from. Izuku trying to stay calm. That's from UA, isn't it? Komari nodded way too fast. Komari grinning. It came this morning. I waited all day so you could open it. Izuku took the envelope, suddenly very aware of how quiet the house felt. He sat down at the table, exhaled once, and opened it. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a flat, black disc. Izuku tilted his head. Izuku confused. Huh. The moment he lifted it, the disc lit up. A soft hum filled the room, and a blue hologram projected upward. A tired-looking man appeared, scarf wrapped around his neck, eyes half-lidded but sharp. Eraserhead. Aizawa flat. Izuku Ikoma. Izuku froze. Izuku startled, though. Komari clapped a hand over her mouth. eyes wide. Aizawa continued, completely unfazed. Aizawa, calm. I'll keep this brief. Your written exam score ranked in the top percentile. Clear reasoning, good judgment, no reckless answers. Izuku relaxed just a little. Aizawa, continuing, your physical exam performance was excessive. Izuku winced. Izuku muttering, yeah, that tracks. Aizawa scrolled something unseen. Aizawa, deadpan. You destroyed a large number of combat units, demonstrated advanced mobility, and showed situational awareness under pressure. Komari leaned closer to the hologram like it might hear her. Komari whispering, oh my goodness. Aizawa paused. Aizawa, additionally, you earned hero points. Izuku blinked. Izuku confused. Hero points? Aizawa explaining, rescue actions. Prioritizing civilians. Risking score opportunities to help others. The image shifted slightly. Aizawa, matter of fact. You earn more of those than anyone else. Izuku stared. Izuku, quiet. Seriously? Aizawa looked directly at him. Aizawa, flat but not unkind. Your total score placed you first overall. The room went silent. Komari's hands flew to her face. Komari overwhelmed. First, Izuku just sat there, brain lagging behind reality. Izuku blank, wait. First? Aizawa nodded once. Aizawa, final. You passed. Then, after a beat, Aizawa, almost amused, as the first confirmed Quirkless student accepted into UA National Institute for Public Safety and Heroics welcome. The hologram flickered. Aizawa, dry. Try not to break the campus. The disc powered down. The room stayed quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Komari grabbed Izuku in a hug, so tight his chair tipped back slightly. Komari laughing and crying. You did it. You actually did it. Izuku laughed too, a little stunned, a little breathless. Izuku still processing. I guess I did. He looked down at the disc in his hand. Izuku leaned back, smiling wide now. Izuku soft, excited. My Hero Academia, huh? The airport was loud in a steady, constant way. Rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, people hugging goodbye or rushing toward gates like they were late for something important. The air smelled like coffee and perfume and recycled air conditioning. Izuku stood near the arrival exit with Komari on one side and Ojiro on the other. Komari looked neat and excited, hands clasped together like she was trying not to bounce in place. Ojiro stood a little straighter than usual. Dojo uniform swapped for something more normal, but still tidy. Izuku glanced at the arrival board again. Izuku checking. Her flight landed 10 minutes ago. Ojiro blinked. Ojiro curious. You didn't tell me she was coming back today. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Izuku casual. Yeah, figured I'd surprise you. Ojiro frowned slightly. Ojiro suspicious. Surprise me how? Before Izuku could answer, a bright voice cut through the crowd. Valentina loud, thrilled. Izuku. Izuku's head snapped up instantly. He didn't even think. Izuku lighting up, Val. He moved without hesitation, weaving through people with smooth speed, not a blur this time, just fast enough to close the distance quickly. He met her halfway. Valentina Hannah Madrigal looked exactly like the picture Ojiro had seen. Once long dark hair flowing behind her, red flower clipped near her ear, pearl necklace resting against a deep red dress that somehow made the entire terminal look less gray. She dropped her bag and threw her arms around Izuku's neck. Valentina laughing, you idiot. You didn't tell me you'd be here this early. Izuku caught her easily, lifting her slightly off the ground. Izuku grinning, you didn't tell me you'd land early. She pulled back just enough to look at him properly, eyes scanning his face. Valentina softening. You passed, didn't you? Izuku smiled wider. Izuku proud. First. Her eyes widened. Valentina gasping. First. She smacked his shoulder lightly, then hugged him again. Valentina excited. I knew it. I told my cousins you'd top it. Across the way, Ojiro stood frozen. His tail had completely stiffened. Ojiro stunned, under his breath. Oh. Komari leaned toward him, amused. Komari whispering, that's Valentina. Ojiro didn't blink. Ojiro still stunned. I can see that. Valentina finally noticed the others and gently let go of Izuku, though she kept one hand hooked around his arm like she wasn't letting him escape. Valentina bright. You're not going to introduce me? Izuku laughed. Izuku casual, right? Mom, you already know. Ojiro, this is Valentina. Ojiro snapped back to attention. Ojiro quick bow. Mashareo, Ojiro. Nice to meet you. Valentina smiled warmly. Valentina friendly. I've heard about you. The tail. Ojiro's tail twitched automatically. Ojiro flustered. Yes, ma'am. Izuku looked between them, amused. Izuku teasing. He's a martial artist. Valentina's eyes lit up. Valentina playful. Oh, so you train with him? Ojiro glanced at Izuku, then back at her. Ojiro recovering slightly. Yeah, he's really something. Valentina tightened her grip on Izuku's arm proudly. Valentina smug, I know. Ojiro stared at Izuku again, processing. Ojiro, quiet disbelief. You didn't tell me she was like that. Izuku blinked. Izuku confused, like what? Ojiro struggled to find the word. Ojiro honest. Wow. Valentina laughed, rich and bright. Valentina amused. I like him. Izuku just scratched his cheek, smiling awkwardly. Izuku light. Yeah, he's cool. Ojiro glanced at Izuku one more time, then at Valentina, then back at Izuku. Ojiro shaking his head. You really got first place, huh? Izuku grinned. Izuku easy, yeah. They stepped out of the airport into warm afternoon air and bright sunlight. Cars lined the pickup lanes. People hugged goodbye. Someone argued over luggage space. It was loud and alive. Izuku barely noticed any of it. He was practically vibrating. Izuku excited. Okay, so first we're getting lunch. Then I'm taking you to that park I told you about. Then there's this dessert place. Valentina laughed, walking beside him with her hand still hooked around his arm. Valentina teasing. Slow down. I just got off a plane. Izuku grinned. Izuku shameless. Nope. I missed you. Komari covered her mouth, giggling softly. Komari amused. He's been like this all week. Valentina shot her a playful smile. Valentina proud. Good. They reached the edge of the pickup zone. Komari adjusted her purse strap and looked at Izuku with that knowing mother expression. Komari warm. Be back by dinner. Izuku nodded immediately. Izuku confident. We will. Valentina didn't wait another second. She turned toward him and jumped. Valentina playful. Catch me. Izuku caught her easily, arms wrapping around her waist as she locked her legs around his hips without hesitation. Ojiro blinked. Ojiro startled. Wait. Izuku bent his knees slightly. Izuku grinning. Hold on. And then, boom. The pavement cracked beneath his feet as he launched upward. Air burst outward in a sharp gust, whipping Komari's hair back and sending Ojiro's tail flaring out behind him. Valentina laughed loudly as they shot into the air. Valentina delighted. There it is. Izuku angled midair, kicking off the air itself and redirecting smoothly, climbing higher before arcing toward the skyline. Within seconds, they were a shrinking figure against the sky. Silence settled back over the curb. Ojiro stood frozen. His mouth was slightly open. Ojiro blank. He can't fly. Komari smiled knowingly. Komari cheerful. He says he can't. Ojiro slowly turned to look at her. Ojiro struggling. He punched a building-sized robot. He just took off like a rocket. He kicked the air. Komari started walking toward the parking lot. Komari light. Ojiro followed automatically, still staring at the sky. Ojiro half to himself. That's not normal. Komari chuckled. Komari fawned. No, it isn't. Ojiro rubbed his forehead. Ojiro in disbelief. And you're telling me he's quirkless? Komari glanced at him with a gentle smile. Komari simple. He is. Ojiro looked back up at the shrinking dot in the distance. Ojiro quiet. That's terrifying. Komari laughed softly. Komari amused. You get used to it. Far above the city, Izuku carried Valentina effortlessly through the air, wind rushing past them as she held on to him, laughing like they were the only two people in the world. Transition. A couple of days later, the campus felt different. Not like a testing ground. Not like a battlefield. Like school. Izuku adjusted his red tie slightly as he walked beside Ojiro through the halls of UA. Both of them in standard uniforms, white shirts, dark green pants, polished shoes. Students moved in clusters, some whispering, some already comparing notes about the entrance exam. Ojiro glanced sideways at Izuku. Ojiro low. You're gonna have to get used to people staring. Izuku blinked. Izuku confused. They're not staring. Ojiro gave him a look. Ojiro flat. They are. A few students ahead whispered. One nudged another. A tall guy with red hair glanced over openly, eyes narrowing slightly in curiosity. They reached the door, marked 1A. Izuku paused for half a second, then slid it open. The classroom buzzed with conversation. Desks arranged neatly. A handful of students already seated, others standing in small groups. The moment Izuku stepped inside. Silence. It wasn't dramatic, just sudden. A few students looked him up and down. He wasn't just tall or fit. He was built, broad shoulders under the uniform shirt, defined arms even through fabric, solid stance. He didn't look like someone who belonged in a hero classroom. He looked like someone who'd already been a pro for years. A red-haired boy leaned toward a blonde with an explosive expression. Red-haired boy whispering, "That's him." Blonde boy scoffing, "TCH." Another student with pink skin and horns stared openly. Pink-haired girl wide-eyed, "He's huge." Ojiro leaned closer to Izuku. Ojiro under his breath. And reason number 2. Izuku tilted his head. Izuku quiet. The robot? Ojiro nodded slightly. Ojiro simple. The 0-pointer. A few students' eyes flicked to him again. Izuku scratched his cheek awkwardly. Izuku muttering, it was falling. Before he could say anything else, a black-haired man in a sleeping bag sat up from behind the teacher's desk. He had been there the whole time. No one noticed. His hair was messy, his eyes tired, his expression unreadable. The room froze again. Aizawa stood slowly, capture scarf shifting around his shoulders. Aizawa flat. If you're done staring at each other. Aizawa looked at the class like they were already disappointing him. Aizawa calm, bored sit. Chairs scraped quickly as everyone rushed to their seats. Izuku and Ojiro found 2 near the middle. The room felt tighter now, heavier. Aizawa walked to the front casually, hands in his pockets. Aizawa blunt. You're not here for trivial things like socialization. Several students stiffened. A collective bead of sweat dropped. Izuku leaned forward slightly, interested. Aizawa glanced around the room. Aizawa dry. This is the hero course. If you thought this would be fun and games, you can leave now. No one moved. Aizawa's eyes stopped briefly on Izuku. Aizawa, even, were starting immediately. The class swallowed. One thought passed through almost everyone's mind. Who is this guy? The classroom stayed quiet after Aizawa finished speaking. Everyone sat a little straighter now. Whatever they expected from their first day, it clearly wasn't this. Aizawa leaned against the desk, arms loosely crossed. Aizawa flat. Introduce yourselves. He glanced around the room lazily. Aizawa unimpressed. Name. Quirk. Brief. A boy with blonde hair and a sparkling smile stood up first, placing a hand dramatically on his chest. Aoyama flourishing. Yuga Aoyama. My quirk is Naval Laser, a brilliant beam of light that shines from my stomach. He struck a pose. Aoyama confident, but alas excessive brilliance causes stomach aches. A few students blinked. A pink-skinned girl with horns hopped up next, smiling widely. Ashido cheerful. Mina Ashido. My quirk is acid. I can produce acid from my body and control how strong or gooey it is. She grinned proudly. A quiet girl with frog-like features raised her hand. Azui calm. See you, Azui. My quirk is frog. I could do most things frogs can. Jumping, climbing, tongue stuff. Ribbit. A boy with glasses stood up stiffly. Ida formal. Tenya Ida. My quirk is engine. Engines in my calves grant me incredible speed. Refueling requires orange juice. A brown-haired girl stood next, a little nervous but smiling. Urarika bright. Achiko Urarika. My quirk is zero gravity. I make things float when I touch them. The introductions continued down the rows. Ojiro stood up smoothly. Ojiro straightforward. Mashireo, Ojiro. My quirk is tail. His tail flicked behind him for emphasis. Next, a blond boy scratched his head casually. Kaminari relaxed. Denki Kaminari. Electrification. I shoot lightning, but if I overdo it, I kind of go dumb for a bit. A red-haired boy slammed a fist into his palm with excitement. Kirishima, energetic. Ijiro Kirishima. Hardening. I can make my body rock solid. A shy-looking boy raised his hand slightly. Koda, quiet. Koji Koda, on E-voice. I talk to animals. A bulky boy grinned sheepishly. Sato, simple. Rikido Sato. Sugar rush. Sugar makes me strong, but it kind of makes me dumb too. A tall boy with multiple arm-like appendages spoke calmly. Shoji, deep. Mizo Shoji. Dupli arms. A girl with headphone-like earlobes leaned back in her chair. Jiro, cool. Kyoka Jiro. Earphone jack. A boy with tape dispensers on his elbows waved. Siro, friendly. Hanta Siro. Tape. A dark-haired boy with a serious expression stood up. Tokoyami, grave. Fumikage Tokoyami. Dark shadow. Then a tall boy with half-red, half-white hair rose. Todoroki, plain. Shoto, Todoroki. Half-cold, half-hot. A floating pair of gloves waved. Hagakure, cheerful voice. Toru Hagakure. Invisibility. Then a blond boy with sharp eyes stood abruptly, hands already sparking slightly. Bakugo, loud. Katsuki Bakugo. Explosion. And I'm the one who's going to be number one. Some students flinched. Aizawa didn't react. Izuku stood up next. The room went quiet again. Izuku scratched the back of his head slightly. Izuku, casual. Izuku Midoriya. I'm quirkless. A few students blinked. Someone whispered. Kaminari under his breath. Seriously? Bakugo scoffed loudly. Bakugo mocking. TCH. Izuku just smiled and sat down. Mineta quickly stood up after him. Mineta nervous. Minoru Mineta. My quirk is pop off. Finally, a tall girl with a calm expression stood. Yaoyorozu, graceful. Momo Yaoyorozu. My quirk is creation. She sat down. The classroom grew quiet again. Aizawa scanned the room slowly. Then he pushed off the desk. Aizawa, flat, good. He reached into a bag beside his desk and tossed something into the middle of the room. It landed with a soft thud. A gym uniform. Aizawa, matter of fact, put these on. Several students blinked. MidoriIkaru, confused. Right now? Aizawa's tired eyes narrowed slightly. Aizawa, deadpan. Welcome to UA. He pointed toward the door. Aizawa, calm. Physical assessment. Now, transition. The PE grounds were wide and quiet under the afternoon sun. A large dirt field stretched out beside the gym building, track lines faintly visible around the edges. The air smelled like warm soil and fresh grass, and a light breeze moved through the trees beyond the fence. Izuku stepped onto the field first. He looked around for a second, taking in the space, then set his bag down near the edge. Without wasting time, he rolled his shoulders and started stretching. Arms across his chest, neck tilts, slow squats. Nothing flashy, just methodical warm-ups. Izuku muttering to himself. Hamstrings good, shoulders loose. He bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, then jogged a short circle before dropping into push-ups. Smooth, quick, controlled. Behind him, the door to the gym opened again. Aizawa stepped out, hands in his pockets, capture scarf hanging loosely around his neck. He stopped when he saw Izuku already working out. Aizawa, mildly surprised. You're early. Izuku looked up and stood quickly. Izuku, polite. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to start anything yet. Aizawa, waved it off. Aizawa, flat. Warm-ups aren't a crime. Izuku relaxed slightly and rubbed the back of his neck. Izuku, honest. I just like making sure everything's ready before moving fast. Muscle power works better if everything's warmed up. Aizawa watched him for a moment, eyes sharp despite the tired expression. Aizawa, curious. Muscle power. Izuku nodded, a little enthusiastic now that someone asked. Izuku, earnest. Yeah, it's basically controlled muscle recruitment. Different groups activate in sequences depending on what I'm doing, like hamstrings for acceleration, shoulders for downward force, triceps for concentrated strikes. He caught himself and chuckled awkwardly. Izuku sheepish, sorry. I talk a lot when I get into it. Aizawa stared at him for a second. Aizawa deadpan. I noticed. Izuku laughed quietly. Izuku bright, but it's fun. The human body can do a lot more than people think if you train it properly. Aizawa tilted his head slightly. Aizawa interested. You trained all that yourself? Izuku shrugged. Izuku's simple. Mostly. Picked up some things from martial artists, sports training, biomechanic stuff. I just kept testing what worked. He stretched his arms again, completely relaxed. Izuku curious. Are you excited to see the results too, sensei? Aizawa blinked. Izuku pointed at the track. Izuku friendly. The tests, I mean. Aizawa exhaled quietly through his nose. Aizawa honest, a little. Before Izuku could answer, the gym doors opened again. Students began spilling onto the field in their gym, uniforms stretching, talking, looking around nervously. Kaminari stretched his arms. Kaminari yawning. Man, this place is huge. Kirishima pumped his fists. Kirishima energetic. All right, let's do this. Ojiro spotted Izuku, already standing near the starting area. Ojiro impressed. You're already warmed up? Izuku waved. Izuku cheerful. Yeah. The class gathered loosely in front of Aizawa. He stepped forward, holding a small metal ball in his hand. Aizawa flat. This is the quirk apprehension test. Several students exchanged looks. MidoriIkaru confused. Weight like physical fitness? Aizawa nodded slightly. Aizawa calm, grip strength. 50-meter dash. Standing long jump. Repeated side steps. Ball throw. Standard metrics. He tossed the ball lightly once. Aizawa blunt. Except you'll be using your quirks. A few students immediately looked more confident. Bakugo smirked. Aizawa glanced across the group. Aizawa's serious. If you want to stay in a hero course, it's in your best interest to give it everything you have. A light tension settled over the class. Izuku just smiled, rolling his shoulders one last time. Izuku excited. All right. Aizawa held up the ball. Aizawa even. First test. He pointed. Aizawa simple. Ball throw. His tired eyes flicked briefly toward Izuku. Aizawa flat. Midoriya. Izuku blinked and pointed at himself. Izuku surprised me? Aizawa nodded. Aizawa matter of fact. You scored first in the entrance exam. You go first here too. The class murmured immediately. Bakugo's head snapped up. Bakugo angry, huh? He stepped forward slightly, glaring. Bakugo irritated. That's BS. I should have been first. Aizawa didn't even look at him. Aizawa dry. You weren't. Bakugo clenched his teeth. Bakugo low growl. TCH. Aizawa casually tossed the ball. Izuku caught it with one hand. Izuku grinning nervously. Oh, okay. He stepped into the marked throwing circle, rolling his shoulder once as he looked out over the field. The measuring system blinked to life in the distance. Izuku bounced lightly on his feet. Izuku muttering. All right, controlled throw. He held the ball in his palm and wound his arm back slowly. The muscles in his shoulder and back tightened in sequence, posture adjusting automatically. Izuku focused, triceps drive shoulder alignment. Several students leaned forward. Kaminari whispering. Is he narrating himself? Ojiro crossed his arms, smiling faintly. Ojiro quiet. Yeah, that's normal. Izuku took one step forward. Then he threw. Crack. The air snapped loudly as the ball left his hand. Dust burst outward from the circle, and the metal sphere shot forward like a cannon round, disappearing into the distance before most people even tracked it. Several students blinked. Kirishima's jaw dropped. Kirishima shocked. Whoa. The digital display flickered as it calculated the distance. Numbers climbed rapidly. 100 meters. 200. 201. They kept going. Finally, the number stopped. 742.8 meters. The class froze. Kaminari eyes wide. What? MidoriIkaru gasped. MidoriIkaru amazed. That's insane. Bakugo's eye twitched. Bakugo low, annoyed, TCH. Izuku blinked at the screen. Izuku thinking, oh. He rubbed the back of his head. Izuku sheepish. Maybe I put a little too much into that one. A few students stared at him like he had just said something ridiculous. Aizawa watched the scoreboard, then glanced back at Izuku. Aizawa flat, mildly impressed, 742.8. He wrote something down on his tablet. Aizawa dry. Try not to launch the next one into orbit. Izuku laughed. Izuku embarrassed. I'll aim lower next time. Behind him, several classmates were still staring at the display, trying to process what they had just seen. The tests continued one after another. Most students were still staring at the scoreboard from Izuku's throw when Aizawa waved them toward the next station. Aizawa flat. Next. Izuku jogged over calmly while the others were still whispering. 50-meter dash. Students lined up along the track. Engines revved from Ida's legs, Bakugo cracked sparks in his palms, and Todoroki stood quietly with frost forming along the ground. Izuku crouched down at the starting line. Izuku muttering, hamstring drive light acceleration. The buzzer sounded. Boom! He launched forward so fast the dirt kicked up behind him in a short explosion. His body blurred across the track. The display beeped. 2.11 seconds. Kaminari stared. Kaminari shocked. That's faster than my scooter. Ida pushed his glasses up nervously. Ida impressed. Remarkable. Standing long jump. Izuku bounced once on his toes. Izuku focused. Leg chain, full extension. He jumped. The ground cracked slightly where he pushed off. He soared across the sand pit and landed far past the measuring marker. 14.6 meters. Kirishima pumped his fist. Kirishima excited. That's manly. Grip strength. The machine creaked as Izuku squeezed it. The needle slammed into the red. 156 kilograms. Sato blinked. Sato impressed. That's really strong. Side-to-side steps. Izuku moved like a blur between the markers, barely touching the ground. 312 steps. Jiro whistled softly. Jiro amused. He's not even sweating. Sit-ups. Izuku powered through them like it was a warm-up. 168 repetitions. Uraraka blinked. Uraraka amazed. Does he ever get tired? Distance run. By the time the last test ended, Izuku finished the track lap far ahead of everyone else. He stretched casually while others were still crossing the finish line. Eventually, the class gathered back together in front of Aizawa. He tapped his tablet once, and a large holographic scoreboard appeared above the field. The rankings appeared. Quirk apprehension test results. 1. Izuku Midoriya, 742 points. 2. Shoto Todoroki, 709 points. 3. Tenya Ida, 693 points. 4. Katsuki Bakugo, 689 points. 5. Momo Yaoyorozu, 674 points. 6. Eijiro Kirishima, 661 points. 7. Mashireo Ojiro, 648 points. 8. Tsuyu Azui, 636 points. 9. Mizo Shoji, 628 points. 10. Denki Kaminari, 602 points. 11. Hantasiro, 593 points. 12. Kyokujiro, 585 points. 13. Mina Ishido, 576 points. 14. Fumikage Koyami, 564 points. 15. Achiko Uraraka, 551 points. 16. Rikido Sato, 538 points. 17. Koji Koda, 521 points. 18. Toru Hagakure, 505 points. 19. Yuga Aoyama, 498 points. 20. Minoru Mineta, 463 points. The class stared at the board. At the very top, Izuku Midoriya Quirkless. Kaminari rubbed his eyes. Kaminari confused. How is the Quirkless guy winning everything? Kirishima laughed. Kirishima impressed. That's insane. Bakugo stared at the board, teeth grinding. Bakugo low, TCH. Izuku scratched his cheek awkwardly. Izuku embarrassed. I just try my best. Aizawa glanced at the board once, then at the class. Aizawa flat, good. Several students stiffened. Aizawa slipped his tablet back into his sleeping bag. Aizawa deadpan. Also, The whole expulsion thing earlier? The class held their breath. Aizawa sighed. Aizawa dry. That was a logical ruse. A collective groan spread across the field. Aizawa turned away, already walking back toward the building. Aizawa calm. Class is dismissed. The school day ended the way the first real day of school always does, loud. Students poured out of the front gates of UA, backpacks slung over shoulders, conversations overlapping everywhere. Some were still talking about the quirk apprehension test. Others were complaining about Aizawa already. Izuku and Ojiro walked out together with the rest of Class 1A. Ojiro stretched his arms behind his head as they stepped onto the sidewalk. Ojiro casual. So gym again today? Izuku usually said yes. Every day since they met, that answer had been yes. But today he shook his head. Izuku grinning, not today. Ojiro glanced at him. Ojiro curious. Oh? Izuku shoved his hands in his pockets as they walked. Izuku relaxed. Valentina wanted to take me out to dinner. Ojiro nodded slowly. Ojiro understanding. Ah, date night. Izuku chuckled. Izuku embarrassed. Something like that. Just as they reached the curb. Roar. Both boys turned. A sleek red car came flying around the corner of the street. Engine roaring like it belonged on a racetrack instead of school road. Tires screeched slightly as the driver slowed down hard. The car slid perfectly into a parking spot in front of the gate. Students nearby stopped mid-conversation. Kaminari eyes wide, whoa. The engine purred once before shutting off. The driver's door opened. Valentina stepped out. Long dark hair flowing behind her, red flower tucked near her ear, dress moving slightly in the breeze. She leaned casually against the car door like she owned the entire street. Ojiro blinked, then blinked again. Ojiro stunned. Is that a Maybach? Izuku scratched his cheek. Izuku awkward. Yes, she said her new car got imported today. Valentina spotted him immediately and smiled. Valentina bright. Izuku. She waved once, proud and excited. Valentina playful. Well, what do you think? Izuku walked closer, eyes on the car. The red paint gleamed in the sunlight, sleek and aggressive. It looked like something out of a high-end car show. Izuku circled it slowly. Izuku impressed. Wow. Valentina grinned proudly. Valentina teasing, right? She tossed the keys lightly in her hand. Valentina proud. My baby finally arrived from overseas. Ojiro slowly walked up beside Izuku, still staring at the car. Ojiro, quiet disbelief. Your girlfriend drives a supercar. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Izuku casual. Yeah. Valentina leaned against the hood, watching them both. Valentina smiling. Are you boys done admiring my car? Izuku laughed. Izuku friendly. Sorry. Valentina pointed toward the passenger door. Valentina playful. Get in. I'm hungry. Izuku opened the door. Izuku calling back. See you tomorrow, Ojiro. Ojiro stood there with his tail slowly swaying, still processing everything. Ojiro half to himself. He's quirkless. The car engine roared back to life. Valentina revved it once, clearly enjoying the sound. Valentina grinning. Seatbelt. Then the car shot down the street, red paint flashing in the sunlight as it disappeared into traffic. Ojiro stood there for a moment longer. Then he shook his head. Ojiro muttering, what kind of life does that guy live? Transition. The next morning, Class 1A sat in their seats, waiting. The room was louder than usual. Aizawa hadn't shown up yet, and when that happened, people tended to talk. Kaminari leaned back in his chair, arms folded behind his head. Kaminari grinning. Okay, seriously though. Several heads turned. Kaminari curious. What was that red car yesterday? Izuku blinked from his seat. Izuku confused. Car? Kaminari pointed at him like a detective solving a mystery. Kaminari accusing. Yeah, that one. The crazy red one that roared past the gate. Shiro leaned over his desk. Shiro interested. The supercar? Ashido clapped her hands. Ashido excited. Oh yeah, I saw that too. Several students turned their attention fully toward Izuku now. Even Todoroki looked slightly curious. Kaminari leaned forward dramatically. Kaminari demanding, you got in that thing? A few students exchanged looks. Mineta leaned over his desk. Mineta suspicious. and there was a girl driving. Ashido gasped dramatically. Ashido teasing. A really pretty girl. Several boys in the room suddenly looked very interested. Kirishima raised an eyebrow. Kirishima impressed. Wait, that was your girlfriend? Bakugo scoffed loudly from his seat. Bakugo annoyed. TCH. Kaminari pointed again. Kaminari confused. Hold on. You're telling me the quirkless guy has a supercar girlfriend? Siro leaned in. Siro grinning. Yeah, that math isn't adding up. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Izuku sheepish. Her name's Valentina. Ashido leaned over her desk. Ashido excited. Oh, tell us everything. Mineta practically climbed onto his desk. Mineta desperate. How did you do it? Several students were now openly staring at him. Some curious. Some jealous. Kaminari pointed dramatically. Kaminari complaining. This guy is quirkless and still winning. Izuku laughed nervously. Izuku embarrassed. I didn't really do anything. Boom. The classroom door slammed open. A massive figure burst through the doorway. All Might loud, heroic. I am here. The room froze. Standing in the doorway was the symbol of peace himself, wearing his bright silver age hero costume, cape draped behind him like a flag. He stepped inside with exaggerated confidence. All Might cheerful, walking through the door like a normal person. The class stared. Kirishima shot out of his seat. Kirishima amazed. It's All Might. Uraraka gasped. Uraraka excited. He's really here? Kaminari nearly fell out of his chair. Kaminari shocked. No way. All Might stood proudly at the front of the room, hands on his hips. All Might energetic. Young heroes. I will be your teacher for foundational hero studies. The room erupted into excited chatter. All Might grinned broadly. All Might booming. And today's lesson is the basics of being a hero. He pointed dramatically toward the door. All Might commanding. Put on your hero costumes and meet me at ground beta. Several students blinked. Izuku's eyes lit up. Izuku excited. Hero costumes? All Might suddenly turned toward the door again. All Might cheerful. Now, then. He shot out of the room in a burst of movement, cape flapping wildly behind him. All Might voice fading down the hall. Hurry up. The classroom sat in stunned silence for half a second. Then, Ashido jumped out of her chair. Ashido thrilled. Hero costumes. The entire class rushed for the lockers. Izuku stood up slowly, smiling wide. Izuku soft, excited, all right. His hero career was really starting now. Transition. Ground beta looked like a small city training field. Concrete streets, narrow alleys, empty buildings, and open plazas stretched across the massive practice area. The sky above was bright and clear, and the wind moved gently between the structures. Students gathered near the entrance in their hero costumes. All Might stood proudly in front of them, cape flowing behind him as if it had its own sense of drama. All Might beaming, splendid. He walked down the line, looking at each student carefully. All Might excited. Hero costumes are not merely outfits. They represent your identity, your spirit, and your ideals as heroes. He pointed dramatically toward the group. All Might loud. Young heroes, you look fantastic. Ashido twirled once in place. Ashido proud. I spent weeks designing this. Kirishima flexed his hardened arms proudly. Kirishima energetic. Manly, right? All Might nodded enthusiastically. All Might approving. Very manly. He continued down the line, examining each one. Then he paused. All Might looking around. HM? He counted the students quickly. All Might curious. It seems someone is missing. Ojiro raised a hand slightly. Ojiro calm. Midoriya said he might be a little late. Bakugo scoffed from his spot. Bakugo annoyed. TCH. Just as All Might opened his mouth to respond, the door behind them opened. Izuku stepped out. Izuku casual. Sorry. Took me a minute. Everyone turned. For a moment, nobody said anything. Izuku walked toward them, adjusting one of the wrist straps slightly. Izuku grinning. This thing's more snug than I expected. His costume fit him perfectly. The dark green high-collar bodysuit hugged his frame, black accents tracing along the lines of his muscles. The red belt sat firmly around his waist, and the iron sole boots gave each step a solid weight against the pavement. The arm braces and wrist straps wrapped tightly around his forearms, the bold blue stripes circling his biceps clearly visible. White gloves covered his hands, the yellow sight studs on his knuckles catching the sunlight. And behind him, the long white cape moved gently in the breeze. His hair was slicked back neatly, except for one stubborn strand sticking forward. Silence. Ishido's eyes sparkled. Ishido excited. Oh my gosh. Uraraka clapped her hands together. Uraraka bright. That looks amazing. Kirishima grinned widely. Kirishima impressed. That's seriously cool. Even Todoroki blinked slightly. Todoroki thoughtful. It suits you. Ojiro smiled proudly. Ojiro approving. Looks good, man. Bakugo crossed his arms, looking annoyed. Bakugo low. TCH. All Might stared at Izuku for a second. Then his smile exploded across his face. All Might booming with excitement. Magnificent! He stepped forward dramatically. All Might proud. A strong, confident design. Practical, heroic, and symbolic. He pointed at the cape. All Might thrilled, and the cape. A classic hero element. Izuku's eyes lit up. Izuku excited, right? Valentina suggested the cape. All Might nodded approvingly. All Might energetic. An excellent suggestion. Izuku laughed, clearly enjoying the moment. Izuku happy. I'm glad you like it. All Might turned back toward the class. All Might grand. Now then, young heroes. He raised his arm dramatically. All Might loud. It's time for your very first hero exercise. The class leaned forward slightly, excitement building. All Might grinning. Heroes versus villains. The class leaned in with interest. All Might pointed toward the mock city behind him. All Might energetic. But instead of the usual indoor 2-on-2 exercises, I have decided to do something a little more exciting. Ishido's eyes lit up. Ishido excited, oh. All Might spread his arms wide toward the city blocks. All Might loud. This time we will use the entire city training zone. Several students looked around with surprise. Kaminari blinked. Kaminari confused. The whole thing? All Might nodded enthusiastically. All Might grinning. That's right. He pointed upward dramatically. All Might explaining. In the real world, villains do not politely trap themselves inside a single building and wait for heroes to arrive. Crime happens everywhere. He stomped a foot lightly. All Might firm. Streets. Rooftops. Alleys. Public spaces. Kirishima pumped his fist. Kirishima excited. That sounds awesome. All Might held up 2 fingers. All Might clear. The class will be divided into 2 teams. He gestured to the training zone again. All Might commanding. One team will act as villains hiding somewhere inside the city. He raised his other hand. All Might energetic. The other team will act as heroes who must locate them and stop them. Mineta gulped. Mineta nervous. Stop them how? All Might grinned. All Might cheerful. Capture, restrain, or defeat them. He turned slightly, pointing toward a large storage crate behind him. All Might explaining. Villains will also be guarding a mock danger device somewhere within the city. Uraraka tilted her head. Uraraka curious. Danger device? All Might nodded. All Might serious. Imagine it as a bomb, a stolen prototype weapon, or some other catastrophic threat. He crossed his arms proudly. All Might confident. The villains must protect it. He pointed toward the students. All Might commanding. And the heroes must locate and secure it before time runs out. Denki rubbed his hands together. Denki excited. This is going to be fun. All Might turned toward a nearby control panel where a small display screen activated. All Might cheerful. I will randomly assign the teams. The screen flickered. Names began appearing. Students watched nervously. All Might pointed dramatically at the display. All Might announcing, Team Villain. The first names appeared. Villain Team. Katsuki Bakugo. Tenya Ida. Kyokujiro. Koji Koda. Minoru Mineta. Momo Yaoyorozu. Fumikage Tokoyami. Mizo Shoji. Denki Kaminari. Mina Ishido. All Might pointed again. All Might booming. Team Hero. The rest appeared. Hero Team. Izuku Midoriya. Shoto Todoroki. Achiko Uraraka. Mashireo Ojiro. Eijiro Kirishima. Tsuyu Azui. Hanta Siro. Rikido Sato. Yuga Aoyama. Toru Hagakure. Kirishima grinned widely. Kirishima excited. Let's go. Bakugo cracked his knuckles slowly. Bakugo smirking. Ha! Izuku stretched his shoulders lightly, his cape shifting behind him. Izuku bright. This sounds really fun. All Might pointed toward the massive city zone. All Might loud. Villains will have 10 minutes to hide the device and prepare. He looked toward the heroes. All Might energetic after that. His smile widened. All Might booming. The heroes will hunt them down. Transition. Inside one of the empty buildings in ground beta, the villain team gathered around a dusty table. Broken sunlight poured through cracked windows, and the training danger device sat in the center like a prop from a movie. Jiro leaned against the wall while Shoji folded his large arms. Momo adjusted her gloves slightly. Momo calm. First we should decide where to place the device. Tokoyami nodded slowly. Tokoyami serious. Dark Shadow could guard a corridor. Kaminari scratched his head. Kaminari thinking, maybe we should split up? Bakugo stood off to the side, arms crossed, barely listening. Ashido noticed. Ashido confused. Bakugo? Bakugo scoffed loudly. Bakugo annoyed. Tch. Everyone looked at him. Bakugo cracked his knuckles, an angry grin spreading across his face. Bakugo aggressive, forget all that. He looked toward the direction of the city streets. Bakugo low. The only thing that matters is crushing them. Mineta gulped. Mineta nervous, but we're supposed to guard the device. Bakugo shot him a glare. Bakugo threatening. Shut up. The small boy immediately quieted. Bakugo smirked, sparks popping from his palms. Bakugo smug. That quirkless monster is on the hero team. His grin widened. Bakugo cold. I'll show him where he belongs. Jiro frowned. Jiro flat. You're ignoring the plan already. Bakugo didn't care. Bakugo dismissive. Do whatever you want. He turned and walked toward the building entrance. Bakugo grinning. Just stay out of my way. The villain team exchanged uneasy looks. Across the city blocks, the hero team gathered in an empty plaza. Kirishima bounced on his feet excitedly. Kirishima energetic. All right, let's take them down. Zero leaned against a streetlight. Zero relaxed. We should probably figure out where they're hiding first. Tsuyu nodded calmly. Tsuyu thoughtful. Ribbit. A building near the center would make sense. Todoroki stood quietly, arms crossed as he observed the surrounding structures. Ojiro looked toward Izuku. Ojiro curious. What do you think? Everyone looked at him. Izuku rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Izuku thinking well. He glanced down one of the long streets. Izuku calm. Bakugo's on their team. Kirishima nodded. Kirishima confident. Yeah, he's strong. Izuku nodded too. Izuku agreeing, very strong. He crossed his arms while thinking. Izuku analyzing, but he also gives off really strong fight vibes. Uraraka giggled slightly. Uraraka smiling. That's accurate. Izuku pointed down the street. Izuku explaining. If I were him, I'd be itching to come out and attack instead of guarding something. Tsuyu nodded slowly. Tsuyu agreeing. That sounds likely. Izuku shrugged casually. Izuku relaxed. So if he comes at us, I'll deal with him. Several students blinked. Zero tilted his head. Zero surprised. You'll deal with him? Izuku smiled easily. Izuku casual. Yeah. He stretched his arms once. Izuku calm. In terms of raw power, he's probably one of their strongest. Kirishima nodded. Kirishima respectful. Yeah, Bakugo's explosions are no joke. Izuku shrugged again. Izuku matter of fact. That's fine. His cape moved lightly in the breeze as he looked toward the distant buildings. Izuku confident. If it comes down to it, I'll fend him off. Ojiro smiled faintly. Ojiro impressed. Sounds like a plan. All Might's voice suddenly boomed through the training speakers. All Might excited. Heroes, your time begins now. The plaza went quiet. Izuku rolled his shoulders once and grinned. Izuku bright. All right. He looked toward the mock city. Izuku ready. Let's go find them. Transition. The hero team moved quickly through the mock city, splitting into smaller groups the moment the timer started. Each of them had small communication earpieces provided by the training staff, allowing them to coordinate while searching the blocks of buildings. Concrete streets stretched in every direction, quiet except for the sound of wind and distant footsteps. Izuku jogged lightly across an intersection, his cape shifting behind him as he scanned the rooftops and windows. His breathing stayed calm, relaxed, like he was warming up rather than hunting for villains. Then, boom! An explosion echoed across the city. Several birds flew out from the rooftops nearby. A loud voice followed. Bakugo yelling, "Oh, Quirkless Deku!" Another explosion blasted a chunk of concrete off a nearby wall. Bakugo angry. "Get out here!" Izuku stopped jogging. He tilted his head slightly. Izuku mild curiosity. "Quirkless Deku?" He rubbed the back of his neck thoughtfully. Izuku amused. "Huh, that was new." He had heard plenty of insults growing up. Weak, useless, quirkless trash. But that one? Izuku chuckled softly. Izuku thinking, that's actually kind of creative. Another explosion roared somewhere ahead. Bakugo shouting, "Come out and fight me." Izuku sighed, rolling his shoulders once. Izuku cheerful, well. He crouched slightly. Izuku bright. If the villain is asking for the hero, I guess I should show up. Then he pushed off the ground. Boom! The pavement cracked slightly under his feet as Izuku launched forward at incredible speed. Wind rushed past him as he shot. Through the streets like a green blur. A nearby alley flashed by. Then a rooftop. Then another street. He turned a corner. And there he was. Bakugo stood in the middle of the road, explosions popping from his palms as he scanned the area. Bakugo irritated. "Where the hell are you?" Whoosh. Izuku appeared in front of him. Not running. Not jumping. Just suddenly there. Bakugo's eyes widened slightly. Bakugo surprised. Izuku had already moved again. His body twisted slightly as he kicked off the ground with explosive force, launching upward toward the sky. The momentum carried him straight into the air like a missile. Bakugo reacted instinctively, blasting himself upward after him. Boom! The two shot into the air above the mock city. Izuku hung there for a moment, suspended by sheer speed and force as his cape snapped behind him. To anyone watching from the ground, it almost looked like he was flying. Bakugo scowled midair. Bakugo annoyed, "TCH." Izuku floated there for a brief second longer, smiling brightly. Izuku heroic tone, "Hello there, villain." Bakugo blinked. Izuku placed one hand on his hip dramatically. Izuku cheerful, "I hear you were looking for me." Bakugo's eye twitched. Bakugo angry, "What the hell are you doing?" Izuku grinned. Izuku energetic, "Well, since this is a hero exercise." He pointed at Bakugo like a TV superhero. Izuku bright, "I figured I should act the part." Bakugo growled, sparks exploding from his palms. Bakugo furious, "I'm gonna blow you up." He rocketed forward with an explosion. But Izuku had already moved. Whoosh! He darted around Bakugo in midair, grabbing the back of his combat harness and redirecting his momentum upward. Bakugo shot higher into the sky before he could react. Izuku followed easily, controlling the movement so the explosions didn't send debris into the buildings below. Izuku calm, careful. He smiled gently. Izuku friendly. Let's keep the city intact. High above the mock city, explosions kept cracking through the air as Bakugo chased Izuku through the sky. Each blast pushed him forward like a rocket, smoke trails streaking behind him as he tried to close the distance. Bakugo furious, "Stop running." Izuku twisted through the air gracefully, kicking off invisible pockets of pressure and redirecting his momentum. His cape snapped behind him as he slipped past another explosion. Izuku cheerful. Running? No. He waved politely while drifting sideways through the air. Izuku heroic tone. A hero simply guides villains away from innocent bystanders. Bakugo snarled, blasting toward him again. Bakugo enraged. "Shut up." Boom. Another explosion ripped through the air, but Izuku spun around it, letting the shockwave push him higher instead of hitting him. The motion looked almost effortless, like he was surfing the air itself. Izuku, still smiling. "You're very energetic today." Bakugo's eye twitched violently. Bakugo snarling, "I'm gonna kill." His words were cut off by a voice through the comms. All Might excited, oh my, what incredible aerial maneuvering. Bakugo ignored it completely. He lunged forward again. But Izuku didn't attack back. He simply kept redirecting him higher, farther, away from the buildings and streets below. Each movement was careful and controlled, making sure no explosions hit the mock city. Seconds passed. Then a voice crackled through the calms. Kirishima excited. Midoriya? Izuku tapped his earpiece. Izuku bright. Yes? A loud cracking sound echoed through the city. Crash. Todoroki's calm voice followed. Todoroki flat. Villain team secured. Izuku blinked once. Izuku pleasant, oh. Bakugo froze midair. Bakugo confused, what? Down below, a massive glacier of ice had erupted from the ground, engulfing several buildings and trapping the villain team inside a frozen fortress. Mineta screamed somewhere inside the ice. Mineta panicking. I can't move. Jiro sighed. Jiro annoyed. Seriously? All Might's voice boomed through the training speakers. All Might thrilled. The hero team wins. Bakugo stared at Izuku. His face twisted with frustration. Bakugo furious. You. Izuku suddenly released his grip and dropped. He angled his body downward and kicked off the air once more, descending smoothly toward the street. The landing was soft, controlled, barely making a sound as his boots touched the pavement. His cape fluttered gently as he straightened up. Across the plaza, the hero team gathered near the frozen buildings. Kirishima waved excitedly. Kirishima, energetic. Yo, Midoriya. Uraraka smiled brightly. Uraraka happy. That was amazing. Izuku jogged over to them with an easy smile. Izuku bright. Nice work, everyone. He gave a big thumbs up. Izuku cheerful. Team victory. Shiro laughed. Shiro grinning. You kept Bakugo busy the whole time. Ojiro nodded proudly. Ojiro impressed. That was some serious air control. Izuku scratched the back of his head. Izuku casual. Oh, that? He glanced up toward the sky, where Bakugo was still hovering angrily. Izuku relaxed. I just didn't want him blowing up the buildings. Behind them, Todoroki stood calmly beside the towering iceberg. Todoroki matter of fact. It was efficient. All Might suddenly landed nearby with a dramatic thud. All Might booming. Excellent work. He pointed proudly toward the hero team. All Might excited. Young Midoriya's distraction allowed the heroes to locate and secure the device. Izuku laughed softly, still smiling. Izuku happy. It was fun. Transition. Ground beta slowly returned to normal as the ice began to melt. Todoroki stood near the frozen buildings with one hand raised slightly, heat spreading across the massive glacier. Steam rose into the air as the ice cracked and loosened its grip around the trapped villain team. Mineta tumbled forward the moment the ice released him. Mineta shivering. I thought I was going to die. Jiro stretched her arms. Jiro dry. It was 30 seconds. Kaminari shook his head, still stiff. Kaminari dazed. My brain froze. Nearby, Bakugo dropped back down to the ground, landing hard. His expression was still stormy, but he said nothing as he walked over toward the group. All Might clapped his hands together loudly. All Might booming. Gather up, everyone. Students quickly formed a loose circle around him in the plaza. The buildings around them still had cracks and frost along the walls, proof that the exercise had been anything but small. All Might stood proudly in the center. All Might energetic. First of all, excellent effort from both teams. Several students straightened slightly. All Might pointed toward the hero team. All Might bright. The heroes secured the objective and prevented unnecessary destruction. Then he pointed toward the villain team. All Might encouraging. And the villains put up a strong defense. Bakugo scoffed quietly. Bakugo low. TCH. All Might crossed his arms and nodded thoughtfully. All Might curious. Now, then. He raised a finger dramatically. All Might excited. Who do you believe was today's MVP? A small pause followed. Then Momo stepped forward. Yaoyorozu calm, if I may. All Might gestured politely. All Might inviting. Go ahead, young Yaoyorozu. Momo clasped her hands behind her back, speaking clearly. Yaoyorozu confident. The deciding factor was Midoriya. Izuku blinked. Izuku surprised me? Several students nodded. Yaoyorozu continued. Yaoyorozu explaining. While Todoroki delivered the final capture, Midoriya's actions created the opportunity for it. She gestured toward the sky. Yaoyorozu logical. By drawing Bakugo away from the battlefield, he removed the villain team's most aggressive offensive force. Kirishima nodded. Kirishima agreeing. Yeah, Bakugo would have wrecked us if he stayed down here. Yaoyorozu continued smoothly. Yaoyorozu clear. He also redirected the conflict away from the buildings, minimizing collateral damage and protecting the objective area. She finished calmly. Yaoyorozu concluding. Without that distraction, the heroes would have faced significantly more resistance. The class looked toward Izuku. Izuku scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Izuku embarrassed. I was just playing decoy. Ojiro smiled. Ojiro light, it worked. All Might burst into a huge grin. All Might booming, exactly. He pointed dramatically at Izuku. All Might proud. Young Midoriya understood the situation and acted in a way that supported the entire team. Izuku laughed sheepishly. Izuku humble. I just kept him busy. All Might placed his hands on his hips. All Might warm. That is what heroes do. The class relaxed a bit as the tension faded. All Might clapped his hands again. All Might cheerful. All right. He turned toward the exit. All Might bright. Class is dismissed. He crouched slightly. All Might excited. Plus ultra. Then he leapt. Boom. The ground cracked slightly as he launched himself into the air and disappeared over the buildings. The class stared for a second. Kaminari blinked. Kaminari confused. He just leaves like that? Ashido laughed. Ashido grinning. That was awesome. Izuku looked up toward the sky where All Might vanished. Izuku smiled widely. Izuku soft, yeah. He adjusted his cape slightly. Izuku happy, it really was. Saturday was quiet. No alarms. No school bell. No teachers throwing unexpected challenges at them. Just sunlight coming through the windows and the calm feeling of finally having a day to breathe. Izuku leaned back on the couch in the small living room, arms stretched along the backrest. His cape and hero gear were nowhere in sight today. Just a simple t-shirt and sweatpants. For once, he was actually relaxing. Music played from Valentina's speaker across the room. Bright, rhythmic Colombian music filled the apartment with energy, drums and guitar bouncing off the walls. Valentina stood in the middle of the room, moving easily with the beat. Her hips swayed smoothly as she danced while doing small things around the apartment, wiping the counter, grabbing a glass, spinning once just because she could. Izuku blinked. He hadn't meant to stare, but it was hard not to. Valentina noticed after a moment. Without even turning around, she spoke. Valentina amused. You're staring. Izuku straightened instantly. Izuku flustered. I know I wasn't. She turned around slowly, one eyebrow raised. Valentina playful. Really? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Izuku honest, maybe a little. She laughed, stepping closer while the music continued playing. Valentina teasing. You've seen me dance before. Izuku shrugged. Izuku smiling. Yeah, but it's still impressive. She stopped in front of him, hands on her hips. Valentina curious. Impressive? Izuku nodded seriously. Izuku earnest. The balance, the rhythm, the footwork. It's like martial arts, but smoother. Valentina stared at him. Then she burst out laughing. Valentina laughing. You just compared salsa to combat training. Izuku grinned. Izuku defensive. Hey, it's accurate. She shook her head, still smiling. Valentina soft. You're ridiculous. The music continued, and she turned back around, moving again with the beat. Izuku leaned back into the couch, watching for another second before catching himself. Izuku muttering. Okay, now I'm staring again. Valentina spun once and pointed at him with a playful smirk. Valentina calling out, then get up and dance. Izuku froze. Izuku alarmed, what? Valentina walked over and grabbed his hand. Valentina firm up. Izuku stood automatically. Izuku nervous. I don't know how to. She placed his hands where they needed to be and stepped back slightly. Valentina confident. You punch robots the size of buildings. She tilted her head. Valentina challenging. You can handle a dance. Izuku laughed awkwardly. Izuku resigned. All right, but if I step on your foot. Valentina pulled him into the rhythm. Valentina smiling. You won't. Lemon warning. Izuku and Valentina danced together, their bodies moving in sync with the lively Colombian music. The rhythm pulsed through the room, filling every corner with its infectious energy. As they spun and swayed, their laughter mingled with the beat, creating a soundtrack of pure joy and camaraderie. After a while, their movements slowed and the space between them narrowed. Izuku's hands rested on Valentina's hips, feeling the curve of her body beneath his fingertips. She looked up at him, her eyes sparkling with mischief and something more desire. Valentina leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. You know, she whispered, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Before Izuku could respond, she pressed her lips to his, kissing him deeply. He responded eagerly, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her closer. The music seemed to fade into the background as they lost themselves in each other. Valentina broke away, her breath ragged. She took his hand and led him to the couch, pushing him gently until he sat down. Then, with a playful smirk, she knelt in front of him. Her hands moved to his waistband, deftly unbuttoning his pants. Izuku lifted his hips to help her slide them down, his heart pounding in his chest. Valentina's eyes met his as she leaned forward, her tongue tracing the length of his PP. Izuku let out a soft squeak, his head falling back against the couch. Valentina took him into her mouth, her lips and tongue working in perfect harmony. The sensation was intense, sending waves of pleasure coursing through his body. The music continued to play, its rhythm matching the beat of their hearts. Valentina's head bobbed up and down, her hands gripping his thighs as she took him deeper. Izuku's fingers tangled in her hair, guiding her movements as he gave himself over to the pleasure. After a few moments, Valentina pulled back, a satisfied smile on her face. She straddled him, her legs on either side of his hips. Izuku's hands found her waist, his thumbs brushing against the soft skin of her stomach. Valentina reached down, positioning him at her entrance. With a slow, deliberate movement, she lowered herself onto him, taking him inch by inch. Izuku's eyes rolled back as he filled her completely, the sensation overwhelming. Valentina began to move, her hips rolling in a rhythm that matched the music. She rode him with confidence, her body glistening with sweat as she leaned back, giving him a full view of her curves. Izuku's hands roamed her body, exploring every inch of her as she moved above him. Valentina's squeaks filled the room, but the loud music drowned them out, creating a private world for just the two of them. Their movements became more urgent, their breaths coming in sync. Izuku could feel the tension building, the pleasure coiling tight in his core. Valentina's nails dug into his shoulders as she rode him harder, chasing her own release. With a final, powerful thrust, Izuku came undone, his body shaking with the force of his org. Valentina followed soon after, her body convulsing as she cried out his name, the music swallowing her cries. They stayed like that for a moment, their bodies entwined, their hearts racing. Valentina collapsed against his chest, her breath hot against his skin. Izuku wrapped his arms around her, holding her close as they both came down from the high. The music continued to play, a gentle reminder of the world outside their little bubble. But for now, they were content to stay right here, lost in each other's arms. Their Saturday morning filled with more than just relaxation, it was filled with passion and connection. End of Lemon, transition. Izuku leaned against the kitchen counter, catching his breath, while Valentina poured herself a glass of water. The afternoon sun was bright, and the streets outside were alive with people enjoying the weekend. His stomach growled. Izuku blinked. Izuku casual. I'm hungry. Valentina laughed. Valentina agreeing. Me too. She tapped her chin thoughtfully for a moment. Then her expression lit up. Valentina excited. Let's go to La Familia. Izuku smiled immediately. Izuku warm. We haven't been there in a while. Valentina nodded, grabbing her jacket from the chair. Valentina fawned. Granny Koharu is going to yell at you for disappearing. Izuka laughed softly. Izuka sheepish. I've been busy. A few minutes later, they were walking down the familiar street together. The neighborhood felt comfortable, small shops, people chatting outside cafes, the smell of cooking drifting through the air. Soon the wooden sign of La Familia Bar came into view. Izuku slowed a little as they approached. Izuka's soft, still looks the same. Valentina opened the door. The bell above it rang softly. Inside, the place smelled like grilled meat, spices, and warm bread. The lights were soft and welcoming, just like always. Behind the counter, an elderly woman with gray hair tied back in a neat bun looked up from wiping a glass. She squinted. Then her eyes widened. Koharu loud, Izuku. Izuku straightened instantly. Izuka bright, Granny Koharu. She marched around the counter faster than someone her age had any right to move and grabbed his face in both hands. Koharu scolding. Where have you been, you big idiot? Izuka laughed awkwardly. Izuku apologetic. School started. She released him with a huff and crossed her arms. Koharu suspicious. Hero school? Izuka nodded. Izuka proud, Ue. The old woman blinked. Then she smacked his arm. Koharu impressed, but gruff. Of course it is. Valentina leaned against the counter, smiling warmly. Valentina playful. You missed us. Koharu scoffed. Koharu pretending. I did not. She turned and grabbed 2 menus anyway. Koharu grumbling. Sit down. I'll bring you lunch. Izuku and Valentina exchanged a small smile before sliding into their usual booth near the window, the same place where everything between them had started. The restaurant was calm that afternoon. Only a few tables were filled, and the soft sound of conversation mixed with the quiet music playing from the speakers behind the counter. Sunlight filtered through the windows and spread across the wooden table where Izuku and Valentina sat. Granny Koharu had already brought them food. A large plate of grilled meat, rice, fried plantains, and a bowl of soup sat between them. Izuku had barely touched it yet, because the conversation kept drifting into different directions. Valentina rested her chin in her hand as she listened. Valentina curious. So how's the hero school life? Izuka took a bite and nodded. Izuka relaxed. Busy. Valentina laughed. Valentina teasing. That's not an answer. Izuku shrugged. Izuku thinking. Well, we had our first hero exercise yesterday. Valentina leaned forward slightly. Valentina interested. The one with the costumes? Izuka nodded. Izuku smiling, yeah. Heroes versus villains. He took another bite before continuing. Izuku casual. All Might's our teacher for that class. Valentina froze for a moment. Valentina blinking. All Might? Izuka nodded again. Izuka matter of fact. Yeah. Valentina stared at him. Valentina slow. The All Might? Izuka scratched his cheek. Izuka sheepish. Yep. Valentina shook her head with a quiet laugh. Valentina amused. You say that like it's normal. Izuka smiled. Izuka light. It's starting to feel normal. She leaned back in her seat. Valentina curious. So what's next? Izuku thought for a moment. Izuku thinking. Well, next week we're doing rescue training. Valentina tilted her head. Valentina interested. Rescue training? Izuka nodded. Izuku explaining. Yeah. Disaster situations, saving civilians, stuff like that. He grabbed his drink and took a sip. Izuku continuing. They're taking us to this big training facility. Valentina tapped her fingers lightly on the table. Valentina curious. What's it called? Izuku swallowed his drink. Izuku casual. USJ. Valentina blinked once. Valentina confused. USJ? Izuka nodded. Izuku explaining. Unforeseen simulation joint. He smiled slightly. Izuka light. Apparently, it's designed to simulate all kinds of disasters. Valentina leaned back again, clearly impressed. Valentina whistling. That sounds intense. Izuku shrugged lightly. Izuka calm, probably. Then he grinned. Izuku relaxed. But it'll be fun. Valentina shook her head with a soft smile. Valentina fawned. Only you would say disaster training sounds fun. Izuku laughed quietly and went back to eating, the conversation drifting into other topics while the afternoon sun slowly moved across the window beside their booth. Monday morning came fast. The class sat inside a UA shuttle bus rolling down a long highway outside the city. Through the windows, the huge white dome of the training facility slowly grew larger in the distance. Everyone was already wearing their hero costumes. Aizawa had said it was optional, but realistically, nobody in Class 1A was about to show up to hero training without their gear. The bus hummed quietly as students talked among themselves. Kirishima leaned across the aisle. Kirishima excited. Man, rescue training sounds awesome. Kaminari nodded eagerly. Kaminari grinning. Yeah, floods, fires, disasters. Shiro leaned back in his seat. Shiro half joking. Hopefully nothing explodes. Bakugo snorted from the back. Bakugo annoyed. TCH. Izuku sat near the middle of the bus beside Ojiro, relaxed but clearly interested in the giant facility ahead. Across the aisle, Tsuyu Azui turned slightly in her seat. Tsuyu calm, Midoriya. Izuku looked over. Izuku friendly, yeah? Tsuyu blinked slowly. Tsuyu curious. How are you so strong if you're quirkless? Several heads turned immediately. Kaminari leaned over the seat. Kaminari interested. Yeah. Shiro nodded. Shiro curious. I've been wondering that too. Kirishima leaned forward with enthusiasm. Kirishima excited. Yeah, man. Your strength is insane. Izuku blinked, then smiled. Izuku bright, oh. He straightened slightly in his seat. Izuku explaining. It's something I call muscle power. Kaminari tilted his head. Kaminari confused. Muscle power? Izuku nodded eagerly. Izuku enthusiastic. Basically, I train my body to control muscle groups individually and together. He flexed his hands slightly as he talked. Izuku explaining. Hamstrings for speed, triceps for striking force, deltoids for impact angles. Shiro blinked. Shiro half lost. You lost me already. Izuku laughed. Izuku sheepish, sorry. He tried again. Izuku simple. It just means I trained every part of my body to work together really efficiently. Tsuyu nodded slowly. Tsuyu thoughtful, ribbit. So your body itself is your ability. Izuku smiled. Izuku agreeing, exactly. Kirishima's eyes lit up. Kirishima pumped. That's awesome. He clenched his fists with excitement. Kirishima inspired. Do you think I could train like that too? Izuku nodded immediately. Izuku encouraging. Anyone can train their body. Kirishima grinned widely. Kirishima fired up. That's so manly. Kaminari scratched his head. Kaminari uncertain. I feel like my muscles would explode. The bus slowed slightly as the massive structure ahead filled the windshield. The USJ, a gigantic dome building surrounded by water channels and large gates. Students leaned toward the windows. Uraraka gasped softly. Uraraka excited. It's huge. Shiro whistled. Shiro impressed. That's a training facility? Izuku looked out the window with bright eyes. Izuku excited, whoa. The bus rolled toward the entrance. Everyone sat forward in their seats now, eager and ready. Today was rescue training, and Class 1A couldn't wait to begin. The shuttle bus rolled to a smooth stop in front of the enormous entrance of the USJ facility. The massive dome towered overhead, sunlight reflecting off the curved glass panels like a giant greenhouse. The bus doors hissed open. Students stepped out one by one, boots hitting the pavement as they looked around in awe. Kirishima whistled. Kirishima impressed. This place is huge. Shiro stretched his arms. Shiro grinning. Man, this is going to be fun. Izuku stepped down from the bus and looked up at the massive structure. His cape moved lightly in the breeze behind him as he took in the sight of the training facility. Izuku quietly impressed. Wow. At the entrance stood a figure in a black spacesuit like hero costume with white gloves and a helmet. The Pro Hero 13. 13 raised a hand politely. 13 warm. Welcome, students. Achiko froze. Then her eyes sparkled. Uraraka excited. 13. She ran forward slightly before catching herself. Uraraka starstruck. You're amazing. Your disaster rescue work is incredible. 13 tilted their head kindly. 13 humble. Thank you. Aizawa stepped off the bus last, hands in his pockets. Aizawa flat. All right, settle down. The class gathered near the entrance. Aizawa glanced around briefly. Aizawa casual. All Might's running a little late. Several students murmured. Kaminari scratched his head. Kaminari confused. All Might? Late? Aizawa shrugged slightly. Aizawa dry, apparently. 13 gestured toward the entrance. 13 kind. In the meantime, I'll guide you through the facility. The large doors opened, and the class walked inside. The interior was massive. A giant central plaza sat below them, with a wide staircase leading down to a large water fountain at the center. Around the plaza were different zones, flood zones, landslide areas, collapsed buildings, fire simulation sections, each designed to replicate real disasters. Students looked around with amazement. Uraraka leaned forward over the railing. Uraraka amazed. It's like a theme park. Izuku nodded. Izuku interested. A disaster theme park. 13 stepped forward slightly, addressing the class. 13 calm. This facility was built to simulate real rescue scenarios. Students listened carefully. 13 serious. As heroes, you will often find yourselves saving people in dangerous environments. Collapsed buildings, floods, fires. Slam! Everyone jumped. The massive entrance doors behind them slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the room dimmed slightly. Students exchanged confused looks. Zero nervous, huh? A strange sound began to echo through the plaza below. A swirling noise, like wind twisting in on itself. Everyone slowly turned toward the center of the facility. Near the fountain at the bottom of the stairs, a black and purple mist began to appear. The air warped as the swirling cloud expanded outward. Suyu blinked. Suyu quiet, ribbit. The mist grew larger and larger. Then shapes began to step out of it. People, dozens of them. Villains. Students froze as more and more figures poured from the portal. Aizawa's expression changed instantly. He stepped forward slightly. Aizawa low. Those aren't part of the exercise. More villains appeared. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Then 3 figures emerged near the front. One was a tall figure made entirely of dark mist. Another was a pale young man covered in disembodied hands scratching at his neck. And beside them, a massive creature with exposed muscles and a bird-like mouth full of teeth, the exposed brain. The pale man looked around slowly, then scratched his neck. Shigaraki annoyed. Huh. His red eyes scanned the balcony where the students stood. Shigaraki quiet. Where's All Might? The air in the USJ turned heavy. What had felt like a training facility seconds ago now felt wrong, too quiet, too tense. The villains below shifted, some cracking their knuckles, others already moving forward like they'd been waiting for this moment. Aizawa stepped forward, eyes sharp. Aizawa low. Those are real villains. A ripple of fear passed through the class. 13 immediately moved in front of the students, arms slightly raised. 13 firm. Everyone stay back. Aizawa glanced over his shoulder. Aizawa commanding. 13 protect the students. 13 nodded. 13 serious. Understood. Before anyone could say anything else, Aizawa stepped off the platform, then jumped. Whoosh. He dropped down the stairs in a blur, landing halfway and continuing forward without slowing down. His capture weapon uncoiled instantly as he ran. Villains charged toward him. Aizawa didn't hesitate. His scarf whipped through the air, wrapping around one attacker's neck and slamming him into the ground. Another rushed him. He ducked low and swept their legs, sending them crashing into the concrete. More came. Aizawa's eyes glowed, faintly red. Aizawa focused. Stay out of my way. One by one, he tore through them. Up above, the students watched in shock. Kirishima clenched his fists. Kirishima fired up. He's taken them all on himself? Bakugo grinned, sparks popping from his palms. Bakugo excited. Ha! He stepped forward. Bakugo aggressive. Finally, Kirishima stepped up beside him. Kirishima ready. Let's go. They both rushed toward the stairs. Izuku turned sharply. Izuku calling out, wait. Too late. Bakugo blasted forward. Boom! Kirishima sprinted right behind him. But just as they reached the bottom, the mist moved. Kurogiri appeared directly in front of them, his form swirling and expanding. Kurogiri, calm. I'm afraid. The air warped. You won't be going any further. Bakugo's eyes widened. Bakugo irritated. Huh? Kirishima reached out. Kirishima confused. What the? Their hands touched the mist, and instantly, they vanished. Whoosh. Gone. The space where they stood was empty. Back on the platform, several students gasped. MidoriIkaru shocked. They disappeared. Zero stepped back. Zero alarmed. What kind of quirk is that? Kurogiri rose slightly, his glowing eyes focused on the remaining students. Kurogiri polite. Allow me to welcome you. The mist began to expand outward. To our facility. Aizawa, still fighting below, turned his head slightly. Aizawa serious. F it. Izuku stepped forward, eyes locked on the spreading mist. His body tensed. Not fear. Focus. Izuku quiet. Teleportation. The mist surged forward, spreading wide like a living curtain ready to swallow the entire class. Students stepped back instinctively, some raising their hands, others frozen as they tried to process what was happening. 13 shifted forward to intercept, but the speed and size of the warp was already too much to cover at once. The air itself felt like it was being pulled apart. Izuku didn't step back. He leaned forward instead, his eyes locked onto the center of the mist, tracking the exact point where Kurogiri's core seemed to stabilize between shifts. His body tensed, muscles tightening in perfect sequence without hesitation or doubt. There was no panic in him, just calculation. Izuku low, found you. Then he moved. The ground beneath his feet cracked as he launched forward, disappearing from the platform in a single burst of speed. To everyone watching, it looked like he had simply vanished 1 second standing beside them, the next already halfway downstairs. The wind snapped behind him as his cape whipped violently in the air. Kurogiri's mist expanded further, preparing to engulf the remaining students. Kurogiri calm. Now then. He didn't finish. Izuku appeared in front of him, already mid-motion. His arm reeled back, shoulder rotating, triceps locking into place with brutal precision. The air compressed around his fist as momentum built in a split second, the pressure alone distorting the mist in front of him. Izuku focused, sorry. Then he punched. Crack. The impact didn't just hit, it displaced the air around it. The force slammed directly into Kurogiri's core, scattering the mist violently, as if it had been struck by a shock wave. The warp field destabilized instantly, collapsing inward as the main body of Kurogiri was sent flying backward. The villain shot across the plaza, then crashed hard into the central fountain. Boom! Water exploded upward from the impact, spraying across the area as stone cracked beneath him. The swirling mist flickered wildly, struggling to maintain form as it dispersed across the surface of the water. Up on the platform, the students stared. Kaminari's jaw dropped. Kaminari stunned. What? MidoriIkaru blinked rapidly. MidoriIkaru shocked. He just... Zero leaned forward, eyes wide. Zero, disbelief. He punched the teleporting guy. 13 paused, momentarily stunned as well. Down below, Aizawa glanced up briefly mid-fight. Aizawa low, impressed. Good timing. Izuku landed lightly near the base of the stairs, boots skidding slightly against the ground as he stabilized himself. His cape settled behind him, and he straightened up, already looking toward the scattered mist near the fountain. The warp had stopped. For now. Izuku rolled his shoulder once, calm as ever. Izuku quiet. Let's not split the team. Kurogiri's mist struggled to reform in the cracked fountain, flickering and unstable from the impact. Water dripped from the stone edges as his body tried to hold shape, clearly shaken. Tamura stood still for a second, fingers twitching against his neck. Then his head snapped toward Izuku. Shigaraki irritated. You. His eyes narrowed. Shigaraki low. Nomu. The massive creature moved. No wind-up. No warning. One moment, it stood beside him. The next, it was in front of Izuku. The ground cracked under its weight as it appeared, towering over him with a massive arm already pulled back. Its exposed muscle fibers flexed as it threw a punch straight down. Izuku's eyes widened slightly. He raised his arm. The punch landed. Boom! A burst of air pressure exploded outward from the impact, sending water from the fountain rippling violently and kicking up dust along the ground. The force pushed outward in a visible shockwave. But Izuku didn't move. His feet dug into the ground slightly, boots scraping as he absorbed the hit. His arm held firm against the Nomu's fist, muscles tightening as he locked the motion in place. For a moment, everything went still. Izuku blinked. Izuku surprised, oh. He looked up at the creature, then down at the fist he was holding. Izuku interested, that's strong. The Nomu didn't react. It just stared down at him with empty eyes. Izuku's grip tightened slightly. Izuku honest. Actually, a small smile formed. Izuku excited. That's really strong. Behind him, the shockwave had pushed debris outward in a circle. Students above the stairs felt the pressure hit them even from a distance. Kirishima stared. Kirishima stunned. He stopped it. Shiro blinked rapidly. Shiro disbelief. That thing moved like it teleported. Back below, Izuku shifted his stance just a little, adjusting his footing. The Noma's fist was still pressed against his arm. Neither of them had budged. Izuku rolled his shoulder once. Izuku calm. Okay. He looked back up at the creature. Izuku ready. This is a nice change of pace. Izuku shifted his footing and pushed forward. His arm snapped out from the block, driving a clean strike straight into the Noma's chest. The impact landed solid, a sharp crack echoing through the plaza as the force transferred through its body. The Noma slid back several meters, heels digging into the ground before it planted itself and stopped. Dust kicked up around its feet as it steadied, hunched slightly from the hit. Izuku lowered his arm, watching closely. Izuku noticing it took that. The Noma didn't hesitate. It launched forward again, faster this time, its heavy frame tearing across the ground with surprising speed. Its arm pulled back mid-charge, ready to swing again. Izuku leaned forward. Izuku calm, all right. He pushed off. The ground cracked beneath him as he shot forward to meet it head-on. They collided halfway. The Noma swung first. Izuku tilted his body just enough to let the strike graze past, then answered with a short-range punch to its side. The hit landed, but not as clean as before. The creature barely shifted this time. Izuku blinked. Izuku thinking, adapted? The Noma followed up instantly. Its fist slammed into Izuku's shoulder. Thud! The impact forced him back a step, boots scraping against the ground. The force traveled through his body, but he stayed upright, rolling with it instead of resisting fully. Izuku shook his arm out once. Izuku surprised. Okay. A small grin appeared. Izuku honest, that one had some weight. The Nomu came again. Faster. Stronger. Izuku moved with it, matching pace, trading strikes in tight motion. A punch to the torso. A block. A redirect. A counter to the ribs. Each hit landed with solid force, but the Nomu kept coming, barely slowing. Another blow slipped through. Its fist connected with Izuku's side, pushing him back a few steps this time. Izuku exhaled, resetting his stance. Izuku breathing steady. Nice. Up above, the students were watching with wide eyes. Kaminari leaned over the railing. Kaminari shocked. He's getting hit. Kirishima clenched his fists. Kirishima focused. Yeah, but he's still standing. Down below, Izuku stepped forward again, shoulders loose, posture relaxed despite the hits he'd taken. He looked at the Nomu, eyes sharp but smiling. Izuku excited. You're fun. Shigaraki's fingers dug into his neck as he watched the exchange drag on longer than he expected. His eyes twitched, irritation turning into something sharper. Shigaraki snapping, what are you doing? The Noma kept moving, trading blows, taking hits, giving them back. Shigaraki stepped forward, voice rising. Shigaraki angry, and it already. He pointed at Izuku. Shigaraki yelling, kill the all-might wannabe. The words carried across the plaza. Izuku heard it. He exhaled slowly, shoulders relaxing as he reset his stance. The small grin faded into something calmer, more focused. He glanced at the Nomu for a second longer. Izuku, quiet. You're really strong. The Nomu stepped forward again, ready to attack. Izuku rolled his arm once. Izuku's soft, kinda sucks. He shifted his footing, muscles tightening in sequence. His stance lowered slightly, weight centered, everything aligning for one motion. Izuku focused. All right. The Nomu lunged. Izuku moved at the same time. His arm drew back, shoulder rotating, hips turning, everything connecting into a single clean strike. The air compressed around his fist again, heavier this time, tighter. Izuku stepped in. Izuku, calm. Ballista knuckle. He punched. The impact was immediate. A massive burst of air pressure exploded outward as his fist drove into the Nomu's chest. The force didn't just push, it carried through, launching the creature backward at high speed. The Nomu's body lifted off the ground and shot across the plaza, crashing hard into the far wall. Concrete shattered on impact, cracks spreading outward as dust and debris fell around it. For a second, it didn't move. Izuku lowered his arm slowly. The plaza went quiet except for falling debris and the faint sound of water from the fountain. Izuku looked at the spot where it landed. Izuku low, yeah. He rolled his shoulder once, the tension leaving his body. Up above, the students stared in stunned silence. Kaminari didn't even blink. Kaminari whispering. He ended it. Kirishima exhaled slowly. Kirishima impressed. That was insane. Down below, Shigaraki stood still. Then his hands clenched tighter. Shigaraki quiet, furious. What? So this was the end of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.